Chapter 832. The 9 mid-level fiend demons were bewildered and had yet to recover from their stupor. Su Zimo had already attacked. At this point of the battle, the 9 mid-level fiend demons before him no longer posed any threat to him. Splash! Su Zimo channeled his blood chi and the sound of a tsunami could be heard from his body in a frightening manner. All the demons were shocked when they heard that sound. Tsunami blood. That was the result of cultivating one's bloodline to its limits. Solitary Cloud had a grim expression. Although he was a pure-blooded ferocious beast with a noble and strong bloodline, he had not cultivated to that level yet. Swash! Su Zimo had already vanished from the spot. Because he was too fast, he left afterimages in midair that lingered for a long time. Bang! One of the mid-level fiend demons was momentarily distracted and felt a destructive power as his massive body was sent flying instantly. While he was still in midair, he exploded and a blood mist spewed out, dyeing the mountain peak red. Another mid-level fiend demon was dead. There were 8 left. The territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge had a cold gaze as he swayed his poisonous and sharp scorpion tail. Charging towards Su Zimo, he hollered, "Kill! This man is filled with treasures from head to toe. It'll be a great opportunity for us after we kill him." The territorial lord of Cyclone Cave said coldly as well. Without saying a word, Solitary Cloud had already charged towards Su Zimo on a cloud and let out a roar. Under the lead of the 3 territorial lords, the remaining 5 mid-level fiend demons charged forward as well. Bang! 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 8 massive fiend demons surrounded Su Zimo. Su Zimo's body was tiny like an ant. However, every single move he made released a terrifying power of blood chi that dissipated the attacks of the 8 fiend demons. There was no way the fiend demons were a match for him in melee combat. His figure intertwined and spun. After a series of exchanges, the 8 fiend demons felt as though their tendons and bones were about to break apart. Solitary Cloud looked even more miserable. He was indignant and charged forward to take 2 punches from Su Zimo head-on. However, a few of his claws were broken and he was in excruciating pain. Black Sand Eclipse. The territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge roared. His essence spirit had already been pushed to its limits and released the secret skill of the scorpion race. Black sand blew around him and covered the sky. Don't underestimate it just because it's simple sand. Actually, every single grain of sand was condensed from dermic powers and was tainted with a deadly poison. Ordinary demonic beasts that were swallowed by the black sand would turn into pitch-black skeletons in less than 10 breaths, their flesh and blood dissipating. Back then, the young master of Black Sand Ridge released this demonic art. In the end, even Su Zimo's body couldn't be harmed and was easily neutralized. Although they were both mid-level fiend demons, the dermic powers of the territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge's demonic art were much stronger and it was clear that it was much stronger. Su Zimo frowned slightly. After the battle between the primordial spirits, his 2 primordial spirits were already exhausted. It was difficult for them to cast any spells to defend themselves. However, this Black Sand Eclipse was extremely destructive. If he were to forcefully withstand it with his physical body, he would probably be injured. A resolute look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Since that's the case, I'll settle this once and for all. Su Zimo reared his head and roared, "I'll let you guys have a taste of my capabilities as well." Before he finished his sentence, scarlet demonic chi surged around him continuously, forming ancient demons with menacing gazes and claws that were extremely lifelike. There was a wild ox, stone bear, sanguine ape, anaconda, divine steed, hell tiger and wind leopard. The 7 demons were massive and had terrifying auras. Some of them were dozens of feet tall while others were dozens of feet long. They glared with bloodshot eyes that were filled with killing intent. Although Su Zimo's figure was tiny against the encirclement of the 7 demons, he seemed to be the sole ruler of the entire universe and was insufferably arrogant. "What's that? What's up with those demon beasts? Heavens, What's that man's true form? How can he condense so many demon beasts? A series of exclamations could be heard from the foot of Howling Moon Mountain. Beneath the firmaments, the 7 demons stood in midair as though they had existed since ancient times and had reversed the flow of time to look down on the masses. The demons were shocked. Given the knowledge of the demon beasts present, none of them could recognize that it was a bloodline phenomenon. Solitary Cloud was the only one who vaguely recalled some words from the depths of his memories, and his face turned incomparably pale with a bewildered expression. Blood Bat Sound Domain. The territorial lord of Cyclone Cave was already bloodthirsty and could not be bothered anymore as he released a secret skill. Sound Domain was a secret skill unique to the bat race. If one was not prepared, their eardrums would be pierced instantly when the secret skill was released. In fact, the essence spirits of weaker demon beasts would even be destroyed by the Sound Domain secret skill. A series of ripples appeared in the voids. The Sound Domain secret skill had already materialized and surged towards Su Zimo with endless killing intent. Su Zimo's gaze was clear as he opened his mouth motionlessly. Along with his actions, the 7 demons that were initially encircling him opened their mouths at the same time. Roar! A roar burst forth from the mouths of the 7 demons and Su Zimo at the same time with a devouring might. Against that roar, the Sound Domain secret skill of the territorial lord of Cyclone Cave seemed insignificant and dissipated instantly into nothingness. The 8 mid-level fiend demons in the surroundings shuddered. Below, some of the low-level fiend demons that could not dodge in time even bled from the corners of their mouths, eyes, nostrils and ears in a menacing manner. The spirit demons that filled the entire area hugged the ground tightly and kept silent out of fear. Solitary Cloud shuddered and snapped out of his thoughts. He felt a piercing pain in his ears and turned towards Su Zimo instinctively. Go! Su Zimo hollered softly, and the 7 demons that encircled him had already charged forward. A mid-level fiend demon's mind went blank from the shock and he had a dazed expression. The Hell Tiger lunged forward and bit off his head, destroying his essence spirit. The 7 demons charged towards the 7 mid-level fiend demons. Solitary Cloud was the only one who did not charge over. However, the moment Solitary Cloud looked at Su Zimo, the latter turned around slowly and looked over as well. The next moment, Solitary Cloud caught sight of something that shocked him to the core. Su Zimo had an indifferent gaze and a slender figure of a demon beast appeared behind him. It was faintly discernible and coiled around his neck, spiraling upwards. It was the 8th demon. The figure of the Demon King had already condensed and resembled both a Wyrm and a python. However, its face was blurry and could not be seen clearly. Could this demon be a Wyrm? Before Solitary Cloud's thought was completed, his gaze landed beneath the abdomen of the 8th demon and froze. There were 4 claws beneath the abdomen of that demon. Wyrms had 2 legs. Those that had 4 legs were true dragons. Immediately after, Solitary Cloud's pupils constricted violently. One after another, scales appeared on the surface of that person's body and disappeared instantly. Pust! Solitary Cloud gasped with a shocked expression. He suddenly thought of a terrifying possibility. There were no treasures of dragons at all. The only thing that existed was a true dragon. The so-called aura of dragons was emitted by the true dragon before him. It was no wonder why this person's combat strength was so strong and his bloodline was so frightening. It was no wonder why this person said arrogantly that even as a Wyrm, he was not qualified to witness this person's true form. The lifelong wish of the Wyrm race was to transform into a dragon. But now, he had seen a true dragon. There was a thud. Solitary Cloud knelt on the ground in fright. Chapter 833. The descent of the bloodline phenomenon crushed the final hopes of the territorial lords of Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave. The 2 territorial lords were scared out of their wits. These methods were beyond their knowledge. Both of them chose to escape without hesitation right away. Now that the two territorial lords were fleeing, the remaining mid-level fiend demons could not be bothered and turned to flee as well. However, the two territorial lords were the first to react. Furthermore, their speed was far faster than others and they managed to escape the range of the bloodline phenomenon by a hair's breadth. However, the remaining mid-level fiend demons were not as lucky. The wild bull, sanguine ape and the other grand ancient demons charged forward and killed all of them. Their flesh and blood splattered and their essence spirits were destroyed. It was an extremely tragic sight. On the other side, the territorial lord of Ghastly River was kneeling on the ground in fear for some unknown reason. However, at this point in the battle, no one had the time to pay attention to that. The territorial lords of Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave had a tacit understanding and fled in two different directions. The territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge reverted to his human form. His massive scorpion form was truly inconvenient for him to escape in the dense forest filled with ancient trees. On the contrary, his movement techniques became much more agile and he became a smaller target after reverting to his human form. Whoosh! Whoosh! The territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge sprinted with all his might and could only hear the wind howling in his ears. His entire body was cold and he was drenched in sweat. Once I return to Black Sand Ridge, I'll definitely gather experts and make a comeback. The territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge roared internally with a forlorn expression. As a territorial lord who had ruled over Black Sand Ridge for thousands of years, he naturally had some connections and knew many experts. There was no way he was going to let this matter rest after suffering such a huge loss. His essence spirit was starting to ache due to the continuous expenditure of energy as he fled. Even so, the sense of danger behind him did not disappear and followed him like a shadow. Furthermore, it was getting increasingly urgent. Could that person have caught up to me? The territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge could not help but turn back to take a look. That single glance scared him out of his wits and his legs turned wobbly. He saw that not far behind him, a violet bolt of lightning was speeding over. Its speed was extremely fast, and it was really like a bolt of lightning. The distance between the two of them was closing rapidly. Although he could not see it clearly, the territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge knew that the purple bolt of lightning was the demon beast named Mo. Lightning escape. It was an escape technique from the Purple Thunder manual. Although this escape technique was not as explosive and fast as the blood escape technique, it did not have any side effects on the body. Sir, please spare my life. When the territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge realized that he could not escape, he suddenly paused in his tracks and turned around. Bowing to Su Zimo, he shouted, "I'm willing to submit." The two of them were extremely close to each other. The territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge was scared out of his wits and looked flustered, as though he had given up on resisting. If it were anyone else, they would have let down their guard at this moment. However, the moment the territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge spoke, he curled his tongue and spat out a black beam of light with a nauseating stench, piercing towards Su Zimo's face. Actually, the magic weapon that was taken away by the profound disruption mountain wasn't his natal magic weapon. This black poisonous needle was the real one. The black poisonous needle was refined using the strongest poison in his body, the venom of the scorpion tail. It was refined day and night. Even pure-blooded ferocious beasts might not be able to withstand the intensity of the poison. He had managed to retaliate and escape death multiple times with that move. There were countless mid-level fiend demons in the massive Thousand Demon Valley. He wouldn't have been able to become a territorial lord without any true capabilities. However, it was a pity that his move might only be effective against others. It was truly ineffective against Su Zimo. Su Zimo cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness and had the help of his spirit perception. The moment the territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge turned around, he had already sensed danger. Suddenly, a bedazzling brilliance burst forth from his right eye, as though there was a blazing sun. Instantly, the rainwater in the surroundings evaporated. Visual technique, Illumination Dragon Eye. A beam of light tore through the void and brushed past the black poisonous needle in midair, piercing through the head of the territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge instantly. Both parties were way too close. This also meant that there was no way the territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge could dodge that killing move. There was no blood dripping. It had long been burnt to a crisp. The black poisonous needle dimmed and fell to the ground. Even his destiny-dermic weapon was crippled against the gaze of the Illumination Dragon Eye. The territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge's eyes were widened. Although his expression was still menacing when he suddenly attacked, there was a hint of shock in his eyes. He truly had not expected that his killing move would be dispelled by Su Zimo so easily. More than that, he had not expected that he would die here in the blink of an eye. A territorial lord was dead. He no longer had the chance to return to Black Sand Ridge. With an indifferent expression, Su Zimo waved his robes and swept up the storage bag of the territorial lord of Black Sand Ridge into his robes. Without even looking at the corpse, he turned and returned. There were still the territorial lords of Cyclone Cave and Ghastly River to deal with. Lightning flashed and Su Zimo had already vanished from the spot into the forest. The moment he arrived above Howling Moon Mountain, Black Wolf and Chan Rui had already arrived. Both of them had odd expressions and hesitated to speak. Solitary Cloud, the territorial lord of Ghastly River, stood beside the two of them. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. Could Solitary Cloud have kidnapped Black Wolf and Chan Rui to threaten him? Before that thought was completed, Solitary Cloud took a step forward and arrived before Su Zimo. With a thud, he knelt on one knee and cupped his fists. Territorial Lord, Solitary Cloud, am willing to lead all the demons of Ghastly River to submit to you. Su Zimo was about to speak when Solitary Cloud flipped his palm and gripped an extremely weak essence spirit. It was a blood-colored bat. Solitary Cloud said in a deep voice with a respectful expression, Territorial Lord, this is the bat that escaped from Cyclone Cave. I've already captured it. Su Zimo raised his brow. This WIRM was rather tactful. Not only did it submit to him, it even captured the territorial lord of Cyclone Cave who had escaped. Solitary Cloud asked, Territorial Lord, how should we deal with this bat? Kill it, Su Zimo waved his hand. Without hesitation, Solitary Cloud exerted strength in his palm and crushed the essence spirit of the territorial lord of Cyclone Cave. Without receiving Su Zimo's orders, Solitary Cloud did not get up and merely knelt before Su Zimo obediently. Black Wolf and Chan Rui exchanged glances and could see the confusion in each other's eyes. Solitary Cloud's attitude towards Su Zimo was strange. It did not seem like he was subdued by strength. Instead, it seemed like he was showing respect and fear from the bottom of his heart. Both of them were confused. Although it was said that bystanders saw things more clearly, the two of them were confused. For some reason, both parties were fighting when one of them suddenly knelt down in fear and kowtowed. Su Zimo glared at Solitary Cloud with a deep gaze for a moment. Solitary Cloud's expression was respectful and did not seem fake. Su Zimo waved his hand at the thought of his strong bloodline and combat strength. Get up. From this day forth, you're one of the deputy territorial lords of Howling Moon Mountain. Understood. Solitary Cloud was overjoyed and stood up. Putting aside the fact that the territorial lord of Ghastly River had submitted to him, the territorial lords of Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave were dead and those two territories were now ownerless. Su Zimo intended to incorporate those two territories into Howling Moon Mountain's territory and he was lacking a helper like Solitary Cloud. Chapter 834. After the battle, the ground was littered with corpses and devastation. However, the demon beasts that survived Howling Moon Mountain were all excited as they picked up all sorts of spoils of war from the ground. They had won this battle. Initially, Howling Moon Mountain was already in a precarious state and could be destroyed at any moment. However, the appearance of a single person reversed the tides of the battle. The demons raised their heads and looked at the figure on the peak of Howling Moon Mountain with respect and an uncontrollable fervor in their eyes. In the world of demons, the strong reigned supreme. After this battle, the rise of Howling Moon Mountain was inevitable and nobody could stop it. The Rat King puffed his chest and shuttled through the crowd with a domineering air. From time to time, lesser demons would gather around with fawning expressions and offer up their spoils of war. Indeed, he had a reason to be domineering. No matter what, he was the one who brought Su Zimo over from the ancient battlefield. Among the demons, he was also the first to get acquainted with Su Zimo. That alone was enough to prove that his position among the demons was unshakable. On the peak, Monkey, Linghu, and Qing Qing arrived covered in blood. Some of it belonged to others and some of it belonged to them. Caw, caw. Awesome. Monkey licked his lips and grinned, as though he could not feel the pain on his body. After he became a fiend demon, there was finally a huge battle that he could enjoy. Together with Linghu and Qing Qing, he chased after the fiend demons of Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave for dozens of kilometers before returning. Although Little Fox was already used to life in the forest, she did not enjoy killing. After the demon beasts of the two territories fled, she stopped chasing and arrived beside Su Zimo. Go and rest first and recuperate well, Su Zimo smiled. There might be a few more battles in the coming days. He was already prepared to head to Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave to take over those two territories as well after a period of time. Be it a territorial lord or an overlord, the larger the territory, the better. The larger the territory, the more demon beasts they would have under them. It also meant that there would be more resources such as universal treasures, spirit herbs and ores in the territory. Territorial Lord, thank you for protecting Howling Moon Mountain. He Lang bowed deeply to Su Zimo. Without Su Zimo, the outcome of today's battle would have been completely different. Howling Moon Mountain would be divided between Black Sand Ridge, Cyclone Cave and Ghastly River and would cease to exist. But now that Ghastly River had submitted, Howling Moon Mountain's territory had more than doubled. At that thought, Black Wolf's gaze shifted towards Solitary Cloud instinctively. It was understandable that the territorial lords of Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave had lost. It was just that he was not strong enough. Among them, the strangest one was the overlord of Ghastly River. The other two lords still had a trace of hope, so they turned around and fled. This one was really straightforward, he actually chose to submit. Right then, Solitary Cloud said, Territorial Lord, I see that you're alone. You don't have a mount? Yes. Su Zimo nodded and didn't think too much about it. That's good. Solitary Cloud was delighted and said hurriedly, Territorial Lord, let me be your mount then. Black Wolf and Chan Rui were wondering why Solitary Cloud would submit all of a sudden and if there was any scheme behind it. When they heard that, their jaws nearly dropped to the ground. This was no longer considered as submission. It was practically sprawling on the ground. Which demon beast would take the initiative to request to be the mount of another? It was understandable that Solitary Cloud would follow a peerless expert or an overlord. However, this was a low-level fiend demon. There's no need for that, Su Zimo waved it off. You're the Deputy Territorial Lord of Howling Moon Mountain. Wouldn't your status be much lower if you were to become my mount? It's fine, Solitary Cloud waved it off hurriedly. I don't want to be the Deputy Territorial Lord. I'll be your mount. Black Wolf and Chan Rui were stunned when they heard that. Solitary Cloud was the most arrogant person in the surrounding territories. As a pure-blooded ferocious beast, he did have the right to be arrogant. However, what was going on right now? The difference in attitude before and after was way too great. Could it be that he could obtain some sort of tremendous benefits by becoming the mount of a territorial lord? That thought was fleeting and the two of them did not think too much about it. In reality, there were indeed immense benefits for Solitary Cloud if he were to become Su Zimo's mount. After Solitary Cloud guessed Su Zimo's true form and became the latter's mount, he would be able to accompany the latter and cultivate together with him. Even if he could absorb a little bit of the aura of dragons, it would bring unimaginable benefits to Solitary Cloud's cultivation. Dragons. They were existences that reigned supreme in the primordial era. In Solitary Cloud's opinion, as a dragon, Zimo must have come to this remote place to be a territorial lord for a moment of playfulness. Once he was done playing, he would definitely return. If he could follow Zimo and return to the sacred ground of dragons, the chances of him transforming into a dragon would be much greater. Zimo pondered for a moment and guessed Solitary Cloud's thoughts. "Are you sure?" Zimo smiled gently with a strange gaze. "I'm sure. I won't go back on my word." Solitary Cloud nodded hurriedly. "I'm willing to swear a blood oath to follow you for life, forever." "There's no need," Zimo waved it off and interrupted him. "If you're willing, it's up to you." "Thank you, Master." Solitary Cloud had already changed the way he addressed Zimo. "Your position as Deputy Territorial Lord will not change. Go back and recuperate before preparing to attack Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave," Zimo said in a deep voice. "Understood." Solitary Cloud bowed in response. Zimo stood on the peak of the mountain with Monkey, Linghu, Ching, and Little Fox standing behind him. Zimo's scarlet hair draped over his shoulders as he looked into the distance with a deep gaze and murmured, "From this day forth, the 5 of us are going to lead a carefree life." Zimo gazed towards the north with a hint of melancholy in his eyes. He was far away from his homeland and might not be able to return within a short period of time. Ching, look. I dug out this beautiful string of pearls from a pile of corpses painstakingly. It's the best match for your face. Get lost. Don't disgust me. Hee, brother who doesn't know how to coax people, little Tanuki teased with a smile. When he heard the laughter around him, the melancholy in Zimo's eyes dissipated and he smiled in a carefree manner. At the very least, he had Monkey, Linghu, Ching, and Little Fox by his side. He would have less of a headache in the future. Thousand Demon Valley was destined to experience a turbulent storm because of the 5 of them. A month later, the army of Howling Moon Mountain split into 2 groups. Zimo and Solitary Cloud led one group each and headed for Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave. Solitary Cloud fought the demons of Cyclone Cave for half a day and they submitted. Zimo descended upon Black Sand Ridge and killed half of the Black Scorpion race, causing the demons of Black Sand Ridge to submit. Thereafter, in less than half a year, Howling Moon Mountain integrated Black Sand Ridge and Cyclone Cave completely and their territory expanded rapidly. Howling Moon Mountain's reputation soared. In the following period of time, Howling Moon Mountain had a few more battles with the nearby territories that ended in complete victory. Howling Moon Mountain's territory expanded once more. Mo's reputation skyrocketed. Many experts were attracted by his reputation and joined one after another, causing the power of Howling Moon Mountain to grow gradually. Later on, Zimo rarely appeared. With Solitary Cloud, Black Wolf and the other demons presiding over the situation, it was enough for Howling Moon Mountain to continue developing normally. Time passed and the world changed. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed. Chapter 835. Peak of Howling Moon Mountain. A figure stood with his hands behind his back. A gentle breeze blew and his robes fluttered. His scarlet hair danced wildly and his eyes were clear and deep like the ocean. That person had delicate features and looked like a scholar in his 20s. Time did not seem to have left any traces on his face. However, there was an occasional look of vicissitudes in the depths of his eyes. Zimo looked into the distance with an emotional expression. The ancients often said that there was no age in the mountains. It was only today that he truly understood that feeling. For mortals of the mortal world, 100 years was most likely a lifetime. However, for Jining Jinjuan who had a lifespan of 1,000 years, it was truly nothing much. Howling Moon Mountain was still rather peaceful after 100 years. However, he did not know if anything major happened in the cultivation world or if any paragons or monster incarnates were born. He did not know if his old friends were doing well. For the past 100 years, Su Zimo had not slacked off. His cultivation realm was already at the peak of mid-stage nascent soul realm. For Jinying Jinjuan, that cultivation speed was not considered slow. Most importantly, for the past 100 years, Su Zimo's two essence spirits had been nurturing the creation Qinglian. Right now, the creation Qinglian was at grade 4 as well. In terms of power, the grade 4 creation Qinglian was not weaker than a Khanate perfected Lord Dermic weapon. Not only that, for the past 100 years, Su Zimo spent most of his attention and effort researching the ancient book left behind by the mighty figure of Tum sect. That ancient book recorded the attempts and methods of many predecessors as well as how mortals without spirit roots should cultivate. Su Hong's death and the plight of the citizens of Yan country had a huge impact on Su Zimo. That was the reason why he swore to establish a Tao and change the fates of all living beings in the world. That Tao was for all living beings without spirit roots to be able to cultivate and control their own fates. He had gained a lot in the past 100 years. Actually, be it the immortal, Buddhist or fiend Taos, core formation was the most important threshold. Su Zimo discovered that as long as he broke through his core formation and cultivated his essence spirit, the effects of his spirit root would be negligible. In other words, the spiritual root was only a stepping stone for cultivation. The most important thing was to condense a golden core under the premise that one did not have a spirit root. Cultivating to become a demon was naturally possible. However, Su Zimo couldn't expect all the people in the world to train to the end like him, only to be despised by the majority of cultivators. Following this train of thought, Su Zimo studied the ancient book, constantly comprehending and deducing, and really gained quite a bit of insight. Of course, he did not neglect the Een Spirit section, the Purple Thunder Manual, and the Vairocana Sutra. He often cultivated and comprehended the Dharma spells and gained some insights from them. At this moment, a blood-red pillar of light suddenly rose from the distant horizon. It pierced through the clouds and soon disappeared. This blood-colored light pillar was extremely far away from Howling Moon Mountain, its exact location unknown. Looking at the dissipating blood light, Su Zimo frowned slightly. A sense of déjà vu appeared in his mind, but it disappeared in an instant. Solitary Cloud, Su Zimo called out softly. A figure appeared from the darkness not far behind him. It was the original territorial lord of Ghastly River, Su Zimo's current mount, Solitary Cloud. 100 years later, Solitary Cloud was still a mid-level fiend demon. However, his aura seemed to have become purer and the divine light in his eyes was retracted. It was clear that his cultivation had improved greatly. All these years, Solitary Cloud had been observing from the side when Su Zimo was cultivating. Each time Su Zimo cultivated the Een Spirit section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, he would release the aura of dragons. For Solitary Cloud, that aura was extremely beneficial. Su Zimo asked, "Do you know what that blood light that surged into the skies just now was?" "It should be released by the 1,000-year blood sea," Solitary Cloud replied. 1,000-year blood sea? Su Zimo murmured softly. Solitary Cloud explained, the 1,000-year blood sea is a lake in the center of Thousand Demon Valley. Because it's extremely huge and you can't see the end of it, it's called a sea. However, there's something strange about this sea. As time passes by, the color of the sea will turn darker until it reaches its peak after 1,000 years, it's as red as blood. Su Zimo asked again, "What's the story behind the 1,000-year blood sea?" Solitary Cloud replied, "It's said that the blood sea contains the essence blood and souls of demon beasts that died in Thousand Demon Valley for the past 1,000 years. If fiend demons can cultivate in it, their cultivation will improve at a godly speed." "Oh." Su Zimo raised his brow and asked instead, "Since that's the case, doesn't that mean that the Blood Sea is a treasure ground where everyone fights for supremacy and fights break out at every moment?" That was indeed the case initially. Solitary Cloud nodded. However, later on, the battles were way too tragic and escalated continuously. In fact, there were even high-level territorial lords that died one after another. As such, the 7 overlords of Thousand Demon Valley decided to stop fighting and share the 1,000-year Blood Sea. The Blood Sea opens once every 1,000 years and there's a total of 10 spots. The 7 overlords will send their territorial lords to fight for those 10 spots. When he heard that, Su Zimo could not help but ask, since the 1,000-year Blood Sea is so good, why don't high-level fiend demons cultivate in it? The energy within the Blood Sea is limited and high-level fiend demons won't be able to improve significantly if they cultivate in it. However, the essence spirits and bodies of low-level fiend demons can't withstand the energy of the Blood Sea. Therefore, mid-level fiend demons are naturally the most suitable ones. Solitary Cloud pondered for a moment before continuing. Of course, given Lord Mo's strength, there shouldn't be any issues for him to cultivate in the Blood Sea. Su Zimo nodded. In the past 100 years, the soul-nourishing blood ginseng and other items for tempering the soul that he obtained from the ancient battlefield had long been depleted. Su Zimo's cultivation realm and creation Qinglian's grade had both reached a bottleneck. If one were to enter seclusion wholeheartedly after reaching a bottleneck, they might not make any progress even after cultivating for hundreds or thousands of years. At that time, cultivators had to travel outside. It could be an opportunity or a huge battle. Or perhaps, they could achieve an epiphany and breakthrough simply by arriving at an unfamiliar place. According to Solitary Cloud's words, the opportunity to cultivate in the 1,000-year Blood Sea was not to be missed. However, there were extremely few spots to cultivate in the Blood Sea and a fierce battle was inevitable if one wanted to fight for a spot. Su Zimo asked again, how do we fight for a spot to cultivate in the Blood Sea? The 1,000 demon meet. Solitary Cloud replied, a 1,000 demon meet will be held a month later near the 1,000-year Blood Sea. At that time, a few overlords and many territorial lords of 1,000 Demon Valley will arrive and it can be considered as a grand event for us demons. Solitary Cloud pondered for a moment and continued, if Lord Mo wants to participate, we'll have to pay a visit to the overlord of Howling Moon Mountain's territory first. Overlords were above territorial lords. There were 7 overlords in 1,000 Demon Valley. Every single overlord had countless territorial lords under them. Even Solitary Cloud had not seen the overlord of Howling Moon Mountain's territory before. It was said to be a fiend ape in Ape Chatter Ridge. Alright, let's head to Ape Chatter Ridge 3 days later. Now that Su Zimo had made up his mind, he did not hesitate and gave the order right away. Chapter 836. Su Zimo did not bring many people with him for this trip. Apart from Monkey and the other 3, there was also Solitary Cloud and the Rat King. Black Wolf and Chan Rui were left behind at Howling Moon Mountain to guard the territory in case other territories took advantage of the situation. Solitary Cloud reverted to his true form as a Wyrm and Su Zimo and the others rode on his back. As a pure-blooded ferocious beast and a mid-level fiend demon, there were few demon beasts that were foolish enough to offend them along the way. Everyone traveled day and night, traversing mountains and ridges, crossing dozens of territories. They only arrived near Ape Chatter Ridge after half a month. In front of him was a magnificent forest. The reason why it was majestic was because every single ancient tree in the forest had existed for an unknown period of time. One after another, they towered into the skies with lush foliage. Their trunks were thick and solid, resembling pillars that connected to the heavens. Vines crawled on top of them like coiling pythons. Su Zimo and the others were not even as thick as the roots of those ancient trees. In this forest, the light was dim, making it seem eerie and terrifying. Solitary Cloud reverted to his human form and everyone descended. Everyone could not conceal the shock in their eyes as they gazed at the forest before them. For some unknown reason, they felt an inexplicable pressure in their hearts. Su Zimo asked, Solitary Cloud, how much do you know about the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge? There are a total of 7 overlords in 1,000 Demon Valley. It's said that this fiend ape has reigned for the longest time, perhaps 5,000 years. Solitary Cloud replied. 5,000 years of reigning. Su Zimo's expression was grim. Overlords were not only high-level fiend demons, they were the strongest existences among high-level fiend demons. They could only reign over an area if their combat strength was superior to those of the same cultivation realm. He did not know anything about this overlord and was feeling uneasy about coming here recklessly. After all, his cultivation realm was at the peak of mid-stage nascent soul realm right now. If he used all his trump cards, he could cross a major cultivation realm and fight against mid-level fiend demons. However, if he were to face high-level fiend demons, or even the strongest overlords among high-level fiend demons, Su Zimo would definitely stand no chance of winning. During the battle at Misty Peak, the old immortal crane broke through her bottleneck and transformed into a high-level fiendish demon. At that time, Shura had mentioned to Su Zimo that after becoming a high-level fiendish demon, the demon beasts would awaken their innate abilities. Spiritual energy was inferior to magical energy. Dermic powers were no match for divine powers. This was an absolute suppression in terms of strength. Su Zimo gazed at the dark and sinister scene before him with a flickering gaze. Our future is uncertain after entering Ape Chatter Ridge. Everyone, try to keep a low profile and don't be rash. Su Zimo rarely exhorted everyone like this. In Howling Moon Mountain, everyone could do whatever they wanted. But this was Ape Chatter Ridge. The master of this territory was a high-tier fiendish demon. Furthermore, there was definitely more than one high-level fiend demon in this territory. Apart from Solitary Cloud, most of them were low-level fiend demons and there was a difference of 2 major cultivation realms between them. The moment a conflict broke out, they would be crushed like ants. Sure. The Rat King nodded repeatedly. Even before entering Ape Chatter Ridge, he was already pale with fright. Initially, he wanted to broaden his horizons by witnessing the 1,000 demon meet. But now, he was already regretting his decision to pay a visit to an overlord even before the 1,000 demon meet. Ling Hu extended his finger and poked Monkey, saying mockingly, "Brother Monkey, I'm talking to you. Don't be rash. Get lost." Monkey slapped away Ling Hu's palm. Although that was the case, Monkey knew that he was indeed the most rash in their group. The reason why Su Zimo was so cautious was not only because he knew nothing about Ape Chatter Ridge, but also because he had a vague feeling. It was as though he was on a whim. He had a feeling that something big was about to happen in Ape Chatter Ridge. Fufu, which territory is this? Why are a bunch of low-level fiend demons here to join in the fun? Suddenly, a stifled laughter sounded from not far away. Everyone frowned and turned over. A black wind swept by and after it dissipated, more than 100 fiend demons appeared. All of them had powerful auras and frightening gazes, all of them were mid-level fiend demons. Their leader had a scrawny face with an aquiline nose and thin lips. His gaze was sharp and his face was filled with disdain. Monkey gripped his fists gently and glared at that person with a scarlet glint in the depths of his eyes. Ling Hu and the others lamented internally. Trouble came knocking before they even entered Ape Chatter Ridge. The other party had many people and every single one of them was a mid-level fiend demon that was extremely strong. Their chances of winning were not high the moment they fought. Furthermore, they did not know the background of that group of people and it was truly inadvisable to get into a conflict with them. Ling Hu and the others glanced sideways at Monkey, afraid that he would get into a conflict with the other party in a fit of rage. Monkey took a deep breath of air and closed his eyes gradually to endure it. If it was in the past, he would have charged forward a long time ago when he heard those words and saw the provocation on the other party's face. No matter how many people they had or what their cultivation realms were, he would fight them till they toppled the world. Su Zimo was expressionless and lowered his gaze. "Sir, those puny demons are so scared that they don't even dare to speak. Sir is mighty. Hurry, look at that rat demon. He's so scared that his face is ashen and his legs are trembling." He's truly as timid as a mouse. Ha 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 ha. The fiend demons roared in laughter. Suddenly, Monkey opened his eyes with a menacing expression and bared his teeth slightly. Right as he was about to stand out and speak, the Rat King beside him stood in front of Monkey in a flash. I am way too timid. Hee hee, I've embarrassed myself in front of you, sir. The Rat King had a humble expression and smiled in a fawning manner. Scram! Don't let me see you guys ever again. The eagle-nosed man in the lead waved his hand casually and sneered with a disgusted expression, I'm afraid that killing a puny demon like you will dirty my hands. Why yes, sir, you're right, the Rat King bowed and smiled obsequiously. Let's go. The eagle-nosed man called out and the demons entered Ape Chatter Ridge amidst laughter. That seems to be one of the 10 great territorial lords, Ingli. That's him. Apart from him, who else would dare to act so arrogantly in Ape Chatter Ridge? I heard that the Grand Guardian of Ape Chatter Ridge is related to Ingli by blood. Even without the Grand Guardian, Ingli is strong enough to be ranked in the top 3 among the 10 great territorial lords. He's most likely going to advance to become a high-level fiend demon soon. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he listened to the discussions of the demon beasts around him. However, Linghu, Solitary Cloud and the others were secretly shocked with a sense of lingering fear. Monkey frowned as well. The protectors of Ape Chatter Ridge were completely different from the protectors of Howling Moon Mountain. If he was not wrong, the protectors of Ape Chatter Ridge should be high-level fiend demons. To think that a random fiend demon we bumped into would have such a background, Ching Ching sighed. Little Fox asked in confusion, what are the 10 great territorial lords that they're talking about? There are probably hundreds of territories under Ape Chatter Ridge's jurisdiction. Howling Moon Mountain is only one of them, Solitary Cloud explained. Among the hundreds of overlords, the 10 strongest overlords are the 10 great overlords. That person has already threatened us to return. If we enter recklessly and bump into them again, I'm afraid. The Rat King had a worried expression and did not continue. It's fine, Su Zimo waved it off and said indifferently, follow me in. With that said, he led the way into Ape Chatter Ridge. Chapter 837. After entering Ape Chatter Ridge, the number of demon beasts increased and all of them sped in the same direction. There were many forks in the forest and light was dim. Although there was no one to lead them, Su Zimo's group did not get lost as they followed the direction of the demons. Why are there a few low-level fiend demons? Are they here to die? Those fiend demons seem to be from some Howling Moon Mountain. I heard that it's a territory that rose recently and the territorial lord is a low-level fiend demon. Ha! Truly, when there are no tigers in the mountains, the monkeys rule. Not far away, some fiend demons pointed at Su Zimo's group and guffawed. I'm right here. Who says that there aren't any tigers? Blind, Linghu grumbled softly. The Rat King coughed gently and consoled, at the very least, Howling Moon Mountain has made a name for itself. Everyone continued forward. 2 hours later, the commotion at the front gradually cleared up. There were many figures and thick demonic chi that surged into the air, almost covering the entire forest. Everyone was invigorated and hastened their footsteps. Before long, they charged out of the forest and their vision cleared up. In the middle of the forest, a vast flat ground appeared with many fiend demons gathered. Although all of them were in human form, they emitted rumbling demonic chi and were extremely lively. At the front, there was a tall platform built with countless logs and vines. In the middle was a wide chair with a golden tiger skin draped over it. If he was not wrong, that should be the seat of the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge. Su Zimo swept his gaze and caught sight of Ing Li's group before long. Ing Li's group stood at the front of the platform and was chatting with the fiend demons behind them in high spirits. Apart from Ing Li's position, there were 9 other mid-level fiend demons at the front of the platform. Their auras were strong and no one dared to stand beside them. If he was not wrong, the 10 of them should be the 10 great territorial lords. They were the only ones who were qualified to stand at the position closest to the platform. Ling Hu was indignant and grumbled, "If I had known, I would have brought more people with me so that I could strengthen my presence." Sweeping his gaze over, there were almost 100 territorial lords. Each of them brought at least 100 people with them. Some of the lords even brought thousands of people with them, and their momentum was very strong. In comparison, Su Zimo's group was much more shabby. Not only were most of them low-level fiendish demons, there were less than 10 of them. Su Zimo did not push forward. He stood behind the demons. In any case, with their eyesight, they could see everything on the high platform clearly. "We're about to meet the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited." The Rat King rubbed his palms together as beads of sweat appeared on the tip of his nose. Under normal circumstances, given his qualifications, he would not have the chance to meet an overlord unless he cultivated to the level of a high-level fiend demon. Even if he was only here to take a look at the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge, he would have enough bragging rights when he returned to Howling Moon Mountain. If he could attend the Thousand Demon Meet and meet the 7 overlords of Thousand Demon Valley, that would be incredible. Just as the Rat King was fantasizing, Su Zimo's voice suddenly rang out. "He's here." "Ah. Where is it?" The Rat King looked around with a lost expression but did not see anyone. The other fiend demons did not seem to have noticed as well as they continued discussing and laughing. All of a sudden, the expressions of the 10 great territorial lords in the lead changed as though they sensed something and looked towards the forest at the side. Before long, 6 figures walked out of the forest. Leading them was an old ape with grayish-white fur. His face was filled with wrinkles and his eyes were cloudy. His footsteps were extremely slow and even looked like he was staggering. The clamor of the demons gradually quietened down. The 10 great territorial lords had different expressions. Some of them sighed. Some of them shook their heads. Some of them had a look of mockery in their eyes. Most of the fiend demons had more shock in their eyes than anything else. Even Su Zimo's mouth was agape with a stunned expression. Was this old ape the legendary overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge? The old ape did not look domineering or imposing like an overlord. He was past his prime and looked old without any vigor. The old ape's movements seemed to be a little sluggish. Although he was unwilling to believe it, Su Zimo knew in his heart that this old ape should be the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge. That was because the auras of the 5 figures following behind him were simply too powerful. High-level fiend demons. Only high-level fiend demons could exude such might and intimidate everyone. It was said that the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge had 5 protectors. If he was not wrong, those 5 should be the old ape's protectors. It was beyond everyone's expectations. There was no Wirm or Phoenix carriage or Green One carriage. There was no majestic aura as the overlord walked out of the forest calmly. Step by step, he ascended the high platform slowly. He sat on his mount and heaved a long sigh of relief, as though he had expended most of his stamina. "Heis." Monkey beside him suddenly sighed and said softly, "He looks rather pitiful as well." Perhaps it was because they were of the same race, Monkey felt a rare sense of pity towards this old ape. Although he was an overlord, it was difficult for him to fight against the cycle of time and he would eventually age. A hero past his prime. Who wouldn't die? The glory and reputation of the past would eventually dissipate and be drowned in the surging river of time. The 5 protectors followed closely behind the old ape and ascended the high platform. Among them, 2 of the protectors had strange expressions. They seemed to be mocking and excited for a fleeting moment. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Right then, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The feeling of being watched surged into his mind. Su Zimo looked over instinctively. On the high platform, the old ape who was leaning back on his chair was looking over. His eyes were cloudy without any emotions and there were no changes in his expression. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The Mingwang prayer beads could not block the old ape's detection at all. Thankfully, the scarlet-haired Een spirit was overseeing his consciousness with rumbling demonic chi, and he was not worried about being exposed. Demons surrounded him in the depths of Thousand Demon Valley. If his identity as a human was exposed, he would most likely be torn to shreds instantly. After glaring at Su Zimo for a moment, the old ape shifted his gaze to Monkey. The old ape stared at Monkey for an even longer time. A moment later, he retracted his gaze and the wrinkles on his face seemed to have deepened. "Which territory are you guys from?" Suddenly, the old ape asked. The demons were stunned and looked at one another in confusion. Although the old ape no longer looked over, Su Zimo knew that the old ape was asking about them. Su Zimo declared, "Howling Moon Mountain." The moment he said that, countless gazes were attracted. Even the 10 feudal lords standing at the front turned around and looked behind them. When Ing Li saw that it was Su Zimo's group, he frowned and his expression darkened. Isn't that the group of low-level fiend demons? They didn't take the territorial lord's words to heart and dared to come here. They truly don't know what's good for them. A fiend demon whispered. Chapter 838. Oh, the old ape heaved a sigh of relief and nodded slightly. So, it's Howling Moon Mountain. I've heard of the fastest rising territory in the past 100 years. The Rat King and the others were invigorated and felt flattered. Su Zimo had a calm expression. He could not figure out the old ape's intentions. "Stand over here and let me take a look." The old ape looked at Su Zimo's group with a murky gaze and raised his arm, beckoning in a seemingly feeble manner. Monkey looked at Su Zimo with a questioning expression. He had a feeling that the old ape was acting strangely and his hairs stood on end when he was swept by that murky gaze. What he meant was to ask Su Zimo if he felt that something was amiss. They should kill their way out right now. Right now, they were standing at the back of the demon horde and might have a chance if they turned and fled. Su Zimo shook his head gently. Under the watchful eyes of an overlord, who could escape? Even if the overlord was old, he still had 5 protectors backing him. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo parted the demon horde and led the way. Many fiend demons in the surroundings looked at Su Zimo's group with scrutinizing, vicious and malicious gazes. Some of the fiend demons even stuck out their scarlet tongues or bared their fangs and claws in an attempt to scare them and embarrass them. The Rat King walked the short few hundred meters with trepidation and was already drenched in sweat. Even Solitary Cloud felt uneasy and his breathing quickened, let alone him. At that moment, if anyone gave the order and the demons swarmed forward, they would be torn to shreds instantly. Among everyone, Su Zimo was the only one who had a calm expression and continued forward. An imperceptible look of admiration flashed through the old ape's eyes. That boldness was unmatched by anyone else. A strange feeling rose in Su Zimo's heart. The reason why the old ape wanted him to head forward was partly because he wanted to check out Su Zimo's background. At the same time, he seemed to be interested in Monkey. Before long, Su Zimo's group arrived at the platform and stood side by side with the 10 great territorial lords. Ing Li stood beside him. Su Zimo could clearly sense the vicious gazes from the side. Ing Li was not the only one. The fiend demons behind him were filled with killing intent as well. The old ape stared at Su Zimo for a while and asked, "You're the leader of Howling Moon Mountain?" "Yes." Su Zimo replied. The old ape chuckled. If a low-level fiend demon can become a territorial lord, you must have some capabilities. Very good, the younger generation will surpass us in time. I wouldn't dare. Senior, you flatter me. Even when facing an overlord, Su Zimo's attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. But after saying this, Su Zimo regretted it. The word senior was commonly used in the cultivation world. In the demonic beast world, almost no demonic beast race knew how to use it, so it was rather jarring to say it out loud. Su Zimo glanced around and saw the old ape frowning. The surrounding demons might not think too much about such a small issue. However, there was a high chance that it would arouse the suspicions of the old ape. This old ape had lived for countless years and even his eyelashes were hollow. What sort of schemes had he not seen before? Although Su Zimo was expressionless, he reminded himself internally. This was not Howling Moon Mountain, he had to be careful from now on. So, it's you ants. Suddenly, a cold laugh sounded beside him. Ying Li turned around with a menacing gaze and said coldly, I remember that I warned you guys outside Ape Chatter Ridge not to let me see you guys again. How dare you come here? You must have a death wish. Insolent. A protector behind the old ape stood out and hollered. The burly man had a fair face and no beard. However, he was burly and his eyes were like copper bells. His voice was rough and his holler was awe-inspiring. The pale-faced burly man glared at Ying Li coldly and said in a deep voice, You're not qualified to speak when the Overlord is questioning you. Back off. The demons went silent when the Overlord conversed. Even the protectors present could not interrupt casually, let alone Ying Li, who was only a mid-level fiend demon. Ying Li's aura weakened after being hollered at by the pale-faced burly man and he shrunk his neck in fear. The other party was a high-level fiend demon after all and could kill him with a single finger. However, Ying Li's gaze circled behind the old ape and he was invigorated. Puffing his chest, he declared loudly, as one of the 10 great territorial lords, why can't I speak? These ants are merely low-level fiend demons. How dare they come here to join in the fun? They must have a death wish. A commotion broke out within the demon horde. Just now, the old ape praised Su Zimo's group and looked at them in a new light. However, Ying Li's sudden words were akin to disregarding an overlord. The old ape did not seem to have heard the quarrel below and slumped deeply into his chair. His head was lowered, as though he was already asleep. The pale-faced burly man's expression darkened as he glanced sideways and glared at Protector One who was not far away. He then turned around and said coldly, Ying Li, how dare you? Who gave you the guts to disregard an overlord and go against me? There had long been rumors that the Protector One of Ape Chatter Ridge was related to Ying Li by blood. Now, it seemed like it was true. The pale-faced burly man's words were clearly targeted at Protector One who was beside him. Protector One lowered his head like an old monk in meditation and did not move at all, as though he did not hear the accusation of the pale-faced burly man. The pale-faced burly man was increasingly enraged and stomped his foot, causing the platform to shake and dust to fly everywhere. He glared at Ying Li and said coldly, I think you're the one who has a death wish. A suppressive aura surged forth. That was the suppressive aura of a high-level fiend demon and Ying Li could not withstand it at all. Blood drained from his face and he nearly knelt on the ground. Ling, you're being too serious. Right then, another protector stood out and waved his sleeves, dispelling the suppressive aura that the pale-faced burly man exerted on Ying Li with ease. Protector 4, what's the meaning of this? The pale-faced burly man frowned and looked at the protector beside him, questioning, the reason why this Ying Li is so arrogant is because he's relying on the power of someone else. If we don't punish him, where will the dignity of the Overlord go? Why are you so anxious when the Overlord hasn't even said anything? Another protector said in a calm tone. Fufu, someone must be used to being arrogant because his grandfather is the Overlord and doesn't even allow others to speak, another protector said sarcastically. Second protector, third protector, you guys. The pale-faced burly man looked at the protectors beside him in disbelief and was so angry that he was trembling. When he heard that, Su Zimo was enlightened. So, this pale-faced burly man was the grandson of the old ape and was directly related to him by blood. However, given the current situation, it was most likely no longer a matter of the dignity of the Overlord. By the looks of it, something even bigger was about to happen in Ape Chatter Ridge. The pale-faced burly man realized that something was amiss as well and glared at the 4 protectors with a fierce gaze, asking sternly, what are you guys trying to do today? Right then, Protector One who had remained silent the entire time suddenly opened his eyes with a cold glint. Arriving beside the old ape, Protector 1 placed his palm on the old ape's shoulder and patted gently, sighing. Overlord, you've aged. Chapter 839. You're old. Those 3 simple words sent chills down the spines of all the demons present. In other words, he meant that it was time for the guardian to give up his position. Protector 1's palm landed on the old ape's shoulder. The old ape did not move at all, as though he did not sense it. When he saw the old ape's reaction, Protector 1 was even more composed and smiled gently. 5,000 years. You've been in this position for way too long. The demons present were in an uproar. Su Zimo swept his gaze. Half of the 10 great territorial lords were indifferent. It was clear that they knew about this beforehand. Ingli was one of them. Although the other half looked surprised, they shook their heads secretly without saying anything. They could not interfere with the fight for the position of overlord with their strength. Finally, Su Zimo's gaze landed on the old ape. The old ape's white brows were slumped by his mouth motionlessly, as though there were no ripples in his heart at all. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The old ape's reaction was so calm that it was a little strange. Even if he had given up completely, he should not be this calm. The pale-faced burly man's expression turned extremely terrible. He pulled the old ape's chair behind him and said coldly, "If you want the position of overlord, follow the rules and challenge the overlord one-on-one. If you win, the position of overlord will naturally be yours. What's the point of bullying others with numbers?" Protector 1 smiled. "Your grandfather is old, but I'm truly a little afraid if we fight with our lives on the line. I'm the future overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge. Why would I fight with someone who's about to die? Coward." The pale-faced burly man sneered, "Even if you become the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge in the future, which territorial lord will follow you with that bit of guts?" Protector 1 sneered, "If you don't follow me, are you going to follow that old fogey behind you? Ask him how long more he can live. A year? 2 years? 10 years? The pale-faced burly man was silent. All these years, he had watched the old ape's body age bit by bit helplessly. The pale-faced burly man glanced at the old ape and sighed in his heart, "You've won. We won't be the overlord anymore." With that, the pale-faced man picked up the chair and was about to leave with the old ape. "Wait." The second guardian's figure flashed and blocked the white-faced man's path. He said indifferently, "Who allowed you to leave? What are you doing?" The pale-faced man glared angrily. "Your grandfather has been an overlord for so many years and has countless treasures in his hands. Do you still want to bring them into the ground?" The third protector smiled. "Don't go too far." The pale-faced man was so angry that his arms trembled slightly, and his nostrils flared. "Going too far?" The fourth protector said darkly, "It's impossible for the 2 of you to walk out of here alive today. You have cultivated to the high-level fiendish demon level at such a young age. If I let you go, you will be a great disaster in the future." At this moment, the old ape suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at Great Protector expressionlessly and asked, "You want to kill them all?" "That's right, I want to kill them all." Great Protector did not conceal his killing intent at all. He had been waiting for this day for way too long. When the old ape was young, he was extremely strong and there was no hope for him to win. Later on, the old ape did not give up his position even when he was old. Not only that, the pale-faced man was extremely talented and even surpassed the old ape. He was already a high-level fiendish demon at such a young age and became one of the protectors. At this rate, the next overlord would be the pale-faced man. As for him, he would never have the chance to ascend to the position of overlord. He was indignant. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that the old one was in his twilight years and the young one had yet to grow up and kill them both. Ape Chatter Ridge would belong to them. The pale-faced man panted heavily and a layer of fur had already grown on his body, showing signs of reverting to his true form as he snarled, "All the demons here can see how you guys are behaving. None of them will submit to you. Ha 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 ha. Great Protector reared his head in laughter and his voice was sharp. A moment later, the laughter stopped abruptly. Great Protector surveyed the surroundings with a cold expression and exuded a tremendous might that shrouded the heads of the demons. He asked murderously, "Who's not convinced?" The demons lowered their heads one after another. None of them dared to meet Great Protector's gaze. Among the 10 great territorial lords, 5 of them led by Ingli appeared instantly and knelt on one knee, cupping their fists. "We're willing to submit." Naturally, the fiend demons behind the 5 territorial lords knelt as well. When they saw that, the demons did not dare to hesitate and knelt down one after another, hollering, "We're willing to submit." The remaining 5 of the 10 great territorial lords exchanged glances and sighed internally. Given the circumstances, the 5 of them could only kneel as well. "I'm not convinced." Suddenly, a voice sounded. It was extremely ear-piercing compared to the sounds of submission around them. The demons turned towards the voice. Great Protector's expression changed as well as he turned back suddenly. Most of the demons were already kneeling on the ground and there were only a handful of people left standing. Su Zimo's group was among them. Monkey was enraged and shouted, "There's nothing wrong with wanting to take over the position of Overlord. According to the rules, you can challenge the Overlord. The Overlord is in his twilight years but you don't even have the guts to do so. How dare you take over the position of Overlord?" Perhaps it was because he pitied the old ape who was in his twilight years. Perhaps it was because they were of the same race. Monkey could not hold back any longer. Monkey pointed at Great Protector and shouted, "Furthermore, he has already given up the position of Overlord and yet you're still going to kill him. Although I like to fight, I won't bully the old and weak. I can't afford to embarrass myself like that." Linghu and the others were delighted to hear that. However, they also knew that Monkey had already gotten himself into huge trouble. He was criticizing a high-level fiend demon. Furthermore, this was an existence that was about to become an overlord. Su Zimo did not say anything. Since Monkey had already made his choice, he would stand behind Monkey unconditionally. "You have a death wish." Great Protector's face was livid and he was enraged. Ingli, who was initially kneeling on the ground, suddenly jumped up and glared at Monkey fiercely, saying coldly, "Uncle, there's no need to be angry. Leave these ants to me. You're still not convinced?" As though he had heard the greatest joke in the world, Ingli walked over slowly and sneered, "What rights do a low-level fiend demon like you have to, swash?" Suddenly, Ingli felt his vision blur as a figure flashed by. Before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his head. Immediately after, his consciousness sank completely and he did not wake up again. Thud! Ingli's corpse fell to the ground and his head was smashed while his essence spirit was destroyed. The demons were in an uproar. Before Ingli could finish, his head was smashed with a single punch. It was the territorial lord of Howling Moon Mountain. The demons looked at the green figure with shock in their eyes, as though they had seen a ghost. In such a tense atmosphere where no one dared to move recklessly, the territorial lord of Howling Moon Mountain had actually attacked and killed Ingli, one of the 10 great territorial lords. Even the old ape on the high platform was stunned for a moment before nodding his head, let alone the demon beasts below. The one who attacked was Su Zimo. He was resolute in his killing. Since he had already chosen a side, there was no need for him to say anything more. Resolving the problem with lightning speed was the right way to go. Furthermore, he had had enough of Ingli a long time ago. Chapter 840. Ingli's death was way too unjust. That was the thought that flashed through the minds of the demons. Even Ingli himself had not expected that Su Zimo would dare to attack and kill him right in front of high-level fiend demons. He did not even have the slightest bit of defense. "How dare you!" The fiend demon closest to Su Zimo roared with a menacing expression and wanted to revert to his true form to charge over. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo did not even turn back as he swung his arm and swung it in reverse. That arm was like a divine whip that tore through the air with a loud crack. Although the arm seemed weak, it released a terrifying killing power when it landed on the fiend demon's head. The arm coiled around the fiend demon's head. Snap! The moment the fiend demon conjured a menacing wolf head, Su Zimo snapped its neck forcefully and plucked the wolf head off. The wolf head was completely unrecognizable and the essence spirit within was killed instantly. Demon beasts could revert to their true forms almost instantly. However, the two of them were extremely close and that single instant was enough for Su Zimo to kill them. In the blink of an eye, two mid-level fiend demons died in the hands of Su Zimo. It was only at this moment that the demons realized that although the territorial lord of Howling Moon Mountain was a low-level fiend demon, he was truly capable. At the very least, there were not many demons present that could compare to his ferocity and decisiveness. All of you, kill these ants for me. All the fiend demons that follow me will be rewarded from today onwards. Protector 1 waved his hand and gave the order with a cold expression. No matter what, the main targets of the 4 protectors were the old ape and the pale-faced burly man. Roar! Groar! Demonic chi surged into the skies from the flat ground and a series of roars could be heard. The demons were riled up when they heard Protector 1's order. Don't just stand there, attack. Su Zimo nudged Monkey and hollered. Monkey reacted immediately and took out Imminent from his storage bag. Thumping his chest and stomping his feet, he swung Imminent horizontally and repelled anything that came into contact with it. Although Monkey was a low-level fiend demon as well, he could fight against ordinary mid-level fiend demons with Imminent. Solitary Cloud let out a long roar and transformed into his main body. The long and slender flood dragon's body was covered in scales that flickered with streak after streak of divine light. It leapt into the air, the claws beneath its abdomen sharp. The flood dragon's tail moved about, making the void tremble. His strength was obviously more terrifying than 100 years ago. Linghu growled deeply and transformed into a massive body. He lunged into the crowd of demons and extended his tiger claws towards a fiend demon in front of him. Low-level fiendish demon, you're courting death. The fiend demon sneered with a look of disdain. Channeling his dermic powers, he summoned a long saber and slashed towards Su Zimo with a cold glint. Clang clang. 4 incomparably sharp claws protruded from Linghu's tiger claws that were even sharper than white jade. Clang. 2 tiger claws crisscrossed and directly cut the long saber in half. Puchi. Thereafter, Linghu leaped forward and pierced the fiend demon's head with his tiger claws. His essence spirit was destroyed and his massive body collapsed in a pool of blood, dying with grievances. Ching Ching opened her mouth gently and summoned her emerald green feather fan. She injected the power of her essence spirit into the feather fan and gathered dermic powers. The feather fan opened against the wind and a layer of emerald green flames burned on its surface, resembling jade. The surrounding temperature rose rapidly. Swoosh! Ching Ching fanned forcefully. A ball of emerald green flames swept out and engulfed 3 fiend demons instantly. The flames were extremely powerful and caused the 3 fiend demons to shriek in pain. No matter how they struggled, the flames could not be extinguished. The 3 fiend demons were impressive as well. They hardened their hearts and spat out mouthfuls of demonic blood that splattered on their bodies. Shing! The flames were extinguished instantly and thick smoke billowed. Ching Ching felt that it was a pity. It was a pity that they were a major cultivation realm apart. If they were low-level fiend demons, they would not have been able to withstand the might of the emerald green flames. Even so, the 3 fiend demons were burned wretchedly with their flesh lacerated. Some of the fiend demons could not hold it in any longer and released spirit consciousness attacks against Monkey and the others. Bang! Little Fox released her grip and a pitch-black umbrella opened up. It spun slowly and emitted an endless dark glow, blocking the spirit consciousness attacks. The pitch-black umbrella was a rare essence spirit dermic weapon. However, the difference in their cultivation realms was way too great. Little Fox was already struggling to defend against a few spirit consciousness attacks. Thankfully, most of the fiend demons were attracted by Su Zimo alone. Otherwise, they would not have been able to hold out for long if the demons had gathered their strength and attacked Monkey and the others. Su Zimo rampaged through the crowd with a torrential blood chi. None of the mid-level fiend demons could defend against his physical strength. Furthermore, half of his attention was focused on the platform. Although he was the first to attack, he did not lose his cool. Su Zimo knew that very well. The main battlefield of Ape Chatter Ridge's internal strife was on the platform. Given their combat strength, they could not determine the direction of the situation. If the old ape's side could win, everyone would naturally be happy. However, if the old ape and pale-faced burly man were to die, they would be next. Even he did not stand a chance against a high-level fiend demon. Therefore, even though Su Zimo was killing ferociously, he was paying attention to the situation on the platform at all times. If he sensed that something was amiss, he would make use of the chaos to charge out with Monkey and the others. Both sides had yet to fight on the platform. Initially, Protector 1 was extremely confident. However, for some reason, his heart skipped a beat when he exchanged glances with the old ape's murky eyes earlier on. The other three protectors were clearly uneasy as well with uncertain expressions. Protector 1 did not move. Suddenly, Protector 1 felt frustrated as he sensed the chaotic battlefield below. Why weren't they dealt with just a few low-level fiend demons yet? Nothing seemed to be going smoothly today. You've waited for this moment for so long. Why aren't you attacking? Right then, the old ape spoke with a calm voice without any fluctuations. Hee hee. Protector 1 chuckled dryly. I've waited for this moment for so long. I'm in no hurry. Oh, the old ape nodded. If you're not attacking, I'm going to. Before his sentence was completed, the old ape stood up slowly. That single action of standing up released a domineering and terrifying aura that could suppress all demons that blanketed the skies above Ape Chatter Ridge instantly. You, Protector 1 glared at the old ape with widened eyes in disbelief. Although the old ape was old, his aura was still sharp and domineering. It was almost the same as when he was at his peak. You're hiding your strength? Protector 1's expression changed starkly as he uttered those three words with difficulty. The murkiness in the old ape's eyes had already vanished completely. The blood chi in his body surged and rumbled continuously. The two white brows of the old ape that drooped down moved slightly and were completely dyed red. They were scarlet and glistening. His blood chi was channeled to its limits and was already at the tip of his brows. There was no hint of twilight in his body at all with such rich blood chi. Grandpa, you're all right? The pale-faced burly man cheered in delight. Old fogey, you're truly scheming. You even managed to deceive your kin. Protector 1 grit his teeth with a venomous gaze. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have been able to see through your disguise. The old ape thumped his chest and roared with a torrential killing intent. Before his roar ended, the old ape strode forward and attacked. Chapter 841. The moment the old ape attacked, he enveloped the four protectors and his blood chi surged in a ferocious manner. His coarse gigantic hand seemed like it could blot out the skies as it crushed down. Everyone, there's no way out for us. Protector 1 shrieked, if we retreat now, this old fogey will definitely not let us off. Let's join forces and kill him. Kill. The four protectors attacked at the same time to defend. Boom. There was a deafening sound. The high platform collapsed instantly. The four great protectors fell from the sky and transformed into enormous figures in midair. Among them, Protector 1 was an ancient remnant beast, the green-winged eagle. Innate divine power. Protector 1 did not test the waters and released his innate divine power right away. Flapping his massive wings, Protector 1 transformed into a streak of light and vanished before the old ape instantly, circling behind the latter and charging towards the pale-faced burly man. The pale-faced burly man was alarmed. Although he was one of the protectors, he had just advanced to become a high-level fiend demon not long ago, and his combat strength was far inferior to these fiend demons that had cultivated for thousands of years. Roar! The pale-faced burly man stomped, and an extremely ferocious power burst forth from his body as well. Boom! The pale-faced burly man raised his fist and punched viciously towards the incoming streak of light. The force was so strong that it caused the entire void to cave in. A cold laugh sounded from behind the pale-faced burly man. Not good. The pale-faced burly man's heart sank. Protector 1's innate divine power was frightening, and his speed had already reached this level. The difference of a single move was the difference between life and death. The pale-faced burly man felt a sharp pain at the back of his head. If he was reluctant to part with his body at that moment, there was a high chance that his essence spirit would be destroyed. The only way to survive was for his essence spirit to leave his body and abandon his body. All of a sudden, the sharp pain at the back of his head vanished suddenly. Protector 1's shriek sounded. Unknowingly, the old ape was already standing beside the pale-faced burly man and repelling Protector 1 with a single punch. The pale-faced burly man escaped death. Die, old fogey. The other three protectors charged forward and released their divine powers as well. You must have a death wish. The old ape's gaze intensified and an incomparably strong power burst forth from his body. His innate ability exploded. Taking a deep breath of air, the old ape's arms thickened and he threw out 3 consecutive punches that collided with the 3 protectors at almost the same time. 1 against 3. The sound of bones cracking rang out. The arm of a protector exploded from a single punch by the old ape and blood gushed everywhere. His entire arm was crippled. The expressions of the other 2 protectors changed greatly as well. Their blood and chi surged in their bodies, causing them to spit out mouthfuls of blood. Just now, the old ape's abilities were clearly superior to the 3 protectors. Whoosh! A stream of light attacked. The old ape did not even look at it. It reached out its hand and grabbed at the void. Flowing light paused. The Great Guardian was forced to reveal himself. Protector 1 opened his mouth and spat out a dark light. It expanded against the wind and transformed into a dark spear that pierced towards the old ape's face. The 2 of them were extremely close to each other, and this move was extremely sudden. Although the old ape was old, its reaction was extremely fast. It made a prompt decision to let go of the spear and retreat, grabbing the spear in its hand. The Great Protector had already taken the opportunity to flee. Trying to escape. The old ape glared and grabbed the spear in his hands, tossing it in the direction of the Great Protector 1. Poof! A flash of blood appeared in the voids. The Great Protector 1 dodged with all his might. However, his wings were still pierced by his own spear and countless feathers fell. None of you will be able to escape today. The old ape strode forward and chased after them. When he saw that, Su Zimo was no longer worried. Initially, he wanted to charge out with Monkey and the others and escape this place as soon as possible if the situation was amiss. Now that he had witnessed it, the old ape's combat strength was indeed terrifying. He suppressed the internal strife with a flip of his palm. That was the capability of an overlord. That was the might of an overlord. In just more than 10 breaths, all 4 protectors were injured. By the looks of it, the 4 of them would not be able to last much longer. Relieved, Su Zimo's glabella shone and he conjured hand seals repeatedly. With an overlord beside him, Su Zimo did not dare to use dermic arts of the immortals and Buddhas rashly. Furthermore, the dermic art that he released did not belong to the Purple Thunder Manual or Great Day Rolai Sutra. In the blink of an eye, the dermic art was completed. With Su Zimo as the center, an extremely strange dermic power spread out in the surroundings. A series of gray ripples appeared in the voids and rippled in all directions like water. The Aeon Spirit section of the Mystic Classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness did not record any dermic arts and only had spirit refinement techniques. The Yang Spirit section had a dermic art and an Essence Spirit secret skill. According to the records, both of those secret skills were the most frightening killing techniques. Right now, Su Zimo was releasing that dermic art, Baron. The fiend demons that were charging over were enveloped by the gray ripples and their speed turned extremely slow instantly, as though they were stuck in a swamp and could not break free. However, the demons did not feel any discomfort when the gray ripples swept past them. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. The Baron dermic art did not seem to have much power and could only restrict the movement and speed of cultivators. To begin with, Su Zimo was at the Aeon Spirit realm and it was slightly advanced for him to cultivate that dermic art. Furthermore, the dermic arts and Essence Spirit secret skills of the Yang Spirit section had many ancient and mysterious runes that he could not understand and could not truly comprehend the essence of those two secret skills. He believed that this was definitely not the true power of Baron. Su Zimo swept his gaze and his expression changed suddenly. On the ground that was covered by the gray ripples, the spiritual herbs that were full of vitality were withering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the flowers withered in an instant. This is, Su Zimo's pupils constricted. Suddenly, some of the fiend demons closest to him shrieked. Not good, my lifespan is decreasing rapidly. 100 years in a single breath. What a fast speed. My lifespan is 60 years in a single breath. What is this demonic art? A single breath and the lifespan of those fiend demons was reduced by 100 years, 60 years. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. That was the true power of Baron. Furthermore, the closer they were to him, the more their lifespan would be reduced. 100 years in a single breath was not obvious for mid-level fiend demons that had lifespans of thousands of years. However, the reduction in lifespan was continuous. As long as they did not break free from the range of Baron, their lifespan would decrease continuously. Furthermore, it was irreversible. Even if they managed to break free from the range of Baron, the 100 years of lifespan would be gone by then. What a frightening dermic art. Su Zimo could feel his heart thumping wildly. His cultivation realm was too low and he could not recognize the many ancient and mysterious runes in Baron, he could not unleash the true power of Baron. How terrifying would the dermic art be if he could comprehend the mysteries of Baron? 1,000 years in a single breath? If he could reach 1,000 years in a single breath, 5 breaths would be enough to kill a void reversion silently. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, a few exclamations sounded from the other side of the battlefield. Ah, why is my lifespan decreasing? What are those gray ripples? Su Zimo instinctively looked over and could not help but shudder. Unknowingly, the gray ripples had already extended to the platform and enveloped the protectors, the old ape and the pale-faced burly man. Those were high-level fiend demons that were equivalent to the Dharma Dao Jun of the human race. Their lifespan was decreasing as well. Even the Dharma Dao Jun could not defend against the power of Baron. Chapter 842. The power of Baron was the greatest. As the area expanded, it weakened accordingly. By the time the gray ripples reached the old ape and the others, the reduction in their lifespans was almost negligible. It might only reduce their lifespans by a few years in a single breath. However, a dermic art that could strip the lifespans of living beings and that even high-level fiend demons could not defend against was truly frightening. It was especially so for the old ape. Although his combat strength was still present and his blood chi was robust, he did not have much lifespan left and was extremely sensitive to the reduction of his lifespan. Just as the old ape was about to charge forward and kill Protector 1 and the other 3, his expression changed starkly as he leaped and escaped from the range of the gray ripples. The old ape glared at Su Zimo with a conflicted expression and endless shock in his eyes. This time round, he was truly shocked. He had lived for thousands of years and was an overlord, what had he not seen before? Even with the betrayal of the 4 protectors around him, he was still unperturbed. However, this puny low-level fiend demon before him shocked him. If not for the fact that Su Zimo chose to help him right away, he would have thought that Su Zimo was sent by Protector 1 to deal with him. Although that dermic art did not pose a fatal threat to high-level fiend demons, however, the fact that it could affect high-level fiend demons that were 2 major cultivation realms above them and reduce their lifespans forcefully and unreasonably was frightening enough in itself. This was beyond the scope of ordinary dermic arts. When Su Zimo caught sight of the old ape's gaze, he was invigorated and snapped out of his stupor. Whoosh! With a single thought, the gray ripples vanished from Su Zimo's mind. The moment he put away Baron, he felt a little giddy and a sense of fatigue rose from the bottom of his heart. His scarlet-haired spirit dimmed significantly. Although the power of that dermic art was frightening, the drain on one's essence spirit was way too shocking as well. His cultivation realm was still not high enough. If he could cultivate to the yang spirit realm, this situation would be much better. Now that the strange gray ripples had vanished, the old ape heaved a sigh of relief and leaped into the air, reaching out to grab Protector 1 who was in midair. Protector 1 had just snapped out of his stupor and turned to flee hurriedly. Roar! The old ape opened his mouth and roared. His glabella shone and a golden beam of light shot towards the back of Protector 1's head. Essence Soul Secret Technique. The Great Guardian was also impressive. He also condensed his essence spirit immediately. An extremely sharp divine sense fluctuation burst out from his glabella and condensed into a green feather in midair. Whoosh! The green feather pierced through the air. In the blink of an eye, the golden light and the green feather collided. Without a sound. With just a slight pause, the green feather turned into nothingness. The golden light also scattered in the void, turning into golden light spots that filled the sky. Among them, there were still dozens of golden light spots that entered the back of Protector 1's head and surged into his consciousness, causing raging waves. Ah! The Great Guardian's primordial spirit was impacted and he cried out in pain. His body swayed and he almost fell from the sky. The aura of death forced him to calm down. He endured the pain and continued to flee. However, in that split second of delay, the old ape had already caught up. Boom! The gigantic palm pressed down with terrifying momentum. It was like a falling meteor, and a burst of explosive sounds could be heard from the surroundings. The Great Guardian slapped his storage bag and summoned another Dharma artifact. Rise! The Great Guardian bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a stream of essence blood onto the Dharma artifact. The Dharma artifact expanded rapidly and looked like the bone of a demon beast. It was incomparably tough and shielded the Great Guardian's head. Bang! The palm fell and collided heavily against the bone. Snap! The bone exploded. The Great Guardian spat out a mouthful of blood as though he was struck by lightning. The old ape strode forward and reached out with his massive palm once more, grabbing the Great Guardian's head and squeezing. Exclamation point. The Great Guardian's head exploded like a watermelon as blood filled the air. The essence spirit was destroyed. A high-level fiend demon was dead. The old ape turned around and chased after the remaining 3 people. It was too fast. Although they were both high-level fiend demons, the Great Guardian could not retaliate at all against the old ape who seemed to be in his twilight years. Within a few punches and kicks, his head was crushed. When the Great Guardian died, of the remaining 3 protectors, one was severely injured and had just gotten up while the other was held back by the pale-faced burly man. The last one did not manage to escape for long before the old ape caught up to him. When he saw that, Su Zimo knew that the battle was over. The demons realized that as well and some of them stopped, some fled while some of them helped Su Zimo's side. The situation was completely reversed. Su Zimo had already stopped. Everything that happened here had nothing to do with him anymore. He stood on the spot and recalled the feeling of releasing Baron repeatedly in his mind. He comprehended and deduced repeatedly. After an unknown period of time, the sounds of killing gradually died down. Territorial Lord of Howling Moon Mountain, what's your name? A voice sounded beside his ears, but Su Zimo did not seem to have heard it. Solitary Cloud had to nudge him gently before he snapped back to his senses and looked around. The battle was over. The surrounding ground was filled with corpses and fresh blood. It was a tragic sight. Many fiend demons were cleaning up the battlefield. The old ape stood not far ahead with a few corpses beside his feet. By the looks of it, they were the fallen protectors. The one who asked was the pale-faced burly man beside the old ape. My name is Imo, Su Zimo replied. What's your true form? Why can't I tell? The pale-faced burly man sized up Su Zimo brazenly and asked. Su Zimo remained silent. He could not answer that question. When he saw that Su Zimo was silent, the pale-faced burly man frowned and was about to fly into a rage when the old ape beside him coughed gently. Ling, there's no need to ask, the old ape waved it off and looked at Su Zimo meaningfully. I believe that your true form is definitely extraordinary if you can get a WIRM to submit to you willingly. Su Zimo smiled and did not reply. At the side, Ling Hu rolled his eyes at the pale-faced burly man and sent a voice transmission secretly. How dare you call yourself Ling, when you look so burly? How disgusting. Come forward, the old ape beckoned. Su Zimo and the others walked over. The old ape swept his gaze across Su Zimo and the others before landing on Monkey's shoulder. Can you let me take a look at the rod on your shoulder? Ling Hu and the others tensed up instantly. Could this old man have taken a liking to Brother Monkey's 1,000-caddy rod? Monkey did not even think as he handed it over. Although he was arrogant, he had principles as well. He would respect others tenfold if they showed him some respect. Even though the old ape was the overlord of a region, he sounded as though he was discussing with Monkey earlier on. That alone gave Monkey a good impression of him. The old ape received the rod and sized it up for a long time. During that period of time, he would glance at Monkey occasionally and nod from time to time, saying, very good, very good. Everyone was confused when they heard that. They did not know if the old ape was referring to Monkey or 1,000-caddy rod. For some reason, Monkey felt goosebumps from the old ape's gaze. Others might not be able to sense it, but Monkey had a feeling that the old ape's gaze seemed to imply something else. This rod is not bad, the old ape returned 1,000-caddy to Monkey and said with a benevolent smile, you're of the same race as Ling, If you have any doubts about your cultivation, you can ask her at any time. You can get closer in the future. When they heard that, the expressions of Su Zimo and the others turned extremely strange. Chapter 843. Monkey's expression froze. Intimate? He did not know if he had heard wrongly or if the old ape had misspoken. What was there to be intimate with that pale-faced burly man? Monkey felt a chill run down his spine the moment he thought about it. Then, a scene that made everyone's hair stand on end happened. A rare blush appeared on the pale-faced burly man's face as he stomped his feet gently and shook the old ape's arm, chiding, Grandpa, what are you saying? I don't want it. The expressions of Su Zimo and the others changed as they felt their stomachs churning as though they were about to vomit something. Ugh! Unable to hold it in any longer, Ling Hu turned around and vomited all over the ground with a pale face. Ling Hu looked at the pale-faced burly man who was enraged and murderous and waved his hands repeatedly. Sorry, I couldn't hold it in. If you can't hold it in, eat it back. The pale-faced burly man gritted his teeth and said fiercely. Ugh! When Ling Hu heard that, he cursed internally, this is even more F***king disgusting. He turned around and vomited all over the ground again. The pale-faced burly man raised his brows and was about to fly into a rage again. Ling Hu's expression changed starkly as he begged bitterly, Big brother, don't do this. I really can't take it. Enraged, the pale-faced burly man charged forward, wanting to beat Ling Hu up. When Ling Hu saw that the situation was bad, he flashed and hid behind Monkey hurriedly. Big brother, you should be closer to brother Monkey. You're from the same race. Monkey shuddered in fear as well. Normally, he did not respect heaven and earth or fear ghosts and gods. But now, he was flustered by the old ape's strange words. The old ape coughed gently and chuckled, saying unhurriedly, there might be some misunderstanding here. It's a huge misunderstanding. Ling Hu muttered. Monkey nodded hurriedly. For the first time, he felt that Ling Hu was right. He felt that Ling Hu was very cute. He even secretly wondered if he should treat Ling Hu better in the future. The old ape pulled the pale-faced man to its side and explained, let me reintroduce you. This is Yuan Ling, my granddaughter. She's a little stubborn, but she's a woman. Everyone's jaws dropped as they were instantly petrified. You're female. Ling Hu's jaw almost dropped to the ground as he blurted out. Yuan Linger was fuming with anger. She rushed forward and dragged Ling Hu out, grabbed him by the legs, and slammed him onto the ground. Su Zimo was about to make a move. However, he sensed that although Yuan Ling was angry, she had a sense of propriety and didn't really hurt Ling Hu's body. Who asked you to vomit? I'll make you vomit. Yuan Ling was so angry that she repeatedly muttered. Boom. 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 In the blink of an eye, a huge pit was formed on the ground. Ling Hu was sprawled on all fours in the pit. His face was swollen and his eyes were filled with tears as he murmured innocently, what has this got to do with me? Why did you hit me? Ching Ching and Little Fox were already convulsing with laughter. Yuan Ling was still fuming as she returned to the old ape's side and said angrily, Grandpa, I know what you mean. However, I want to make a decision for this matter myself. Yuan Ling glanced sideways at Monkey who was hiding at the side and pouted her lips in disdain. How can a low-level fiend demon be worthy of me? I'm a high-level fiend demon. Even if you try to suck up to me, I won't be interested in you. Initially, Monkey wanted to avoid her. However, he was instantly displeased when he heard that. So what if you're a high-level fiend demon? Monkey sneered, I've only cultivated for slightly more than 100 years. If I were to live to your age, I would have become a mighty demon long ago. Who doesn't know how to brag? Yuan Ling sneered as well. If you were to live to my age, I would be able to beat you into a pig's head with ease. The expressions of Su Zimo and the others turned odd once more when they saw the two of them quarrel. The old ape stood at the side and smiled without saying anything in satisfaction. Yuan Ling pointed at Monkey and said word by word, also, you had better not provoke me. If you do, I can beat you up right now. Monkey had a wild nature and could not stand being threatened by others. Monkey rolled up his arms and shouted, how arrogant. Come, come, come. Let's have a spar right now. What are you being so arrogant for? You're asking for a beating. Yuan Ling stifled a laugh. Come with me. Let's go somewhere else. I'll save you some face. With that said, Yuan Ling led the way. Monkey wanted to follow with his hot-bloodedness. Ling Hu crawled out of the pit hurriedly and grabbed Monkey's arm, reminding, Brother Monkey, don't be rash. She's tall, it's fine. Wait for me to take revenge. The monkey waved his hand heroically and followed Yuan Ling into a pitch-black cave. Soon, they were out of sight. Su Zimo could not help but laugh when he saw that farce. Although the old ape praised him from time to time, he had long realized that the old ape was truly impressed with Monkey. Su Zimo did not know the exact reason. However, it was definitely not because they were of the same race. Su Zimo guessed that it might have something to do with Monkey's bloodline. Monkey's bloodline was extremely strong. Among the 7 sworn brothers, apart from him and Night Spirit, Monkey was the only one. Furthermore, it was strange that Dai Yu imparted the Tendon's transformation section of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness to Monkey. Bang! 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 Not far away, the sound of collisions could be heard from the cave. It sounded extremely intense. However, it calmed down before long. Immediately after, Yuan Ling walked out leisurely. Her expression was normal and her aura was stable. Her clothes were neat and tidy as she puffed her chest. Without even looking at everyone, she came to the old ape's side and said, "Grandpa, let's go." The old ape smiled and looked at Su Zimo. "You guys can stay in Ape Chatter Ridge for a period of time. There's no hurry. I'll bring you guys to the 1,000-year Blood Sea 7 days later to participate in the 1,000 Demon Meet." "Thank you, Overlord." Su Zimo and the others thanked him with cupped fists. Right then, another figure walked out of the cave. Monkey staggered over and limped with a bruised face. It was truly beaten into a pig's head and looked extremely miserable. Everything had its weakness. It was rare to see Monkey suffer, and Ling Hu and the others found it amusing when they saw the injuries on Monkey's face. Monkey sensed everyone's gazes and coughed lightly, saying, "As you guys expected, I fought a huge battle with that little girl and it ended in a draw." Ching Ching and Little Fox were dumbfounded. Ling Hu rolled his eyes and nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. "That's considered a draw?" The spirit tiger chuckled gloatingly. "Brother Monkey, don't be so stubborn. You even wanted to seek revenge for me and got beaten up by her. Ha 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 ha." Monkey's face darkened. Ling Hu did not sense any killing intent and lamented, "Actually, we're in the same boat. Although I was beaten into a pig's head, it's fortunate that I had you by my side." Why are you hitting me again?" Before Ling Hu could finish, Monkey lifted Ling Hu and slammed him into the ground once more. Bang! 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 Another huge pit appeared on the ground. Ling Hu collapsed inside with tears streaming down his face in despair. Everyone burst into laughter. At this moment, stars suddenly appeared in the distant sky. They kept moving, and their trajectories were extremely chaotic. It was as though a pair of invisible hands were manipulating the stars in the firmaments. Su Zimo retracted his smile and frowned slightly, murmuring softly, "Stars in daytime." Chapter 844. The old ape had not gone far and noticed that as well. He paused in his tracks and raised his head with a grim expression. At that moment, night had long passed and the firmaments were bright. However, numerous ancient and boundless stars had appeared in the distant sky, and they flickered between brightness and dimness. The constellations were chaotic, and there was no trace of them to be found. "Grandpa, what's going on?" Yuan Ling had only cultivated for a short period of time and had not seen such a strange sight before. She could not help but ask. "I've never seen a universal phenomenon as such before as well." The old ape shook his head and said slowly, "I'm guessing that something major must have happened beneath the firmaments. In fact, it might even cause the stars to appear in daytime and the constellations to be chaotic." "What could it be?" Yuan Ling asked. "It's hard to say," the old ape replied. "It might be the birth of some treasure or a secret skill. Or perhaps, a grand demon's attainment of the Tao startled the world. In fact, the birth or death of some peerless experts might even cause universal phenomenons. I heard that an emperor of Fahua Monastery died in the catastrophe of the North region 10,000 years ago. Back then, a universal phenomenon was triggered. Heaven and earth mourned the death of an emperor." The old ape lamented. It said that many Buddhas appeared that day and flowers fell from the skies. Golden lotuses sprouted from the ground and Sanskrit reverberated through the world for a long time. Yuan Ling was shocked. The old ape lamented, "I have no regrets in my life after cultivating to this realm where I'm respected by all races." A moment later, the old ape stared at the stars in the firmaments for a while more and frowned. Judging from the position of the firmaments, it seems to be close to the 1,000-year Blood Sea. Could the two of them be related? 7 days later. Ape Chatter Ridge. There were about 1,000 mid-level fiend demons gathered, and all of them were mid-level fiend demons. Su Zimo and the others were among them as well. Although most of them were low-level fiend demons and did not fit in with their surroundings, the demons did not underestimate them at all. The memories of the battle 7 days ago were still fresh in the demons' minds. They looked at the scarlet-haired man at the front with a hint of wariness in their eyes. Before long, the old ape appeared with Yuanling. Let's go. The old ape did not waste time and his glabella shone, releasing a massive spirit consciousness. Waving his sleeves, a gigantic black cloud appeared before him. Dark clouds spread. In the blink of an eye, the black cloud enveloped all the demons. Relax your minds, there's no need to resist. The old ape's voice sounded. Immediately after, the demons felt their bodies lighten and soared into the air. In the blink of an eye, they had already left Ape Chatter Ridge and sped towards the distant horizon. The wind howled in their ears. At this speed, the demons would arrive at their destination in less than 2 to 3 days. Su Zimo nodded secretly. The methods of an overlord were indeed powerful. A black cloud carrying over 1,000 fiendish demons and maintaining such a terrifying speed. How much magic power did it require? As Su Zimo was pondering, the old ape's voice echoed in his mind. It was the old ape speaking to him through divine sense. "Mo, I believe you are participating in the 1,000 demon meet this time around to fight for a spot in the 1,000-year blood sea, right?" Su Zimo replied with a voice transmission, "Of course." The 7 overlords were gathered at the 1,000 demon meet, and he had many cultivation methods that were inconvenient for him to use. However, he believed that given his current strength, he could take on most mid-level fiendish demons even without using his black-haired essence spirit. At the very least, Su Zimo was confident that he could suppress everything in melee combat with his physique. "That's probably going to be difficult," the old ape said. "I've witnessed your methods before. You have a strong physique and are even more frightening in melee combat." In a few words, the old ape pointed out Su Zimo's strengths. Immediately after, the old ape changed the topic. "However, there are only 10 spots in the 1,000-year blood sea. You'll have to pass 2 trials if you want to fight for one of them. You won't be able to pass the first trial." "Oh?" Su Zimo asked, "What's the first trial?" "Simply put, the first trial tests the strength of your essence spirit," the old ape explained. "The opportunity to cultivate in the blood sea is rare and occurs once every 1,000 years. Furthermore, there are only 10 spots each time. Therefore, we will select the strongest mid-level fiendish demons to enter and cultivate. That's the only way we can groom a high-level fiendish demon." When he heard that, Su Zimo frowned slightly and asked, "How do we compare the strength of our essence spirits?" "It can't be a fight between essence spirits, right?" A fight between essence spirits was the most dangerous. Any bit of carelessness could lead to death. If one's essence spirit was damaged in the process of fighting for a spot, the losses would outweigh the gains and no fiendish demon would dare to attempt it easily. "There's no need for that," the old ape shook his head. "The comparison of the strength of one's essence spirit is simple, the range of one's spirit consciousness." When he heard that, Su Zimo was slightly stunned. The range of a low-level fiendish demon's spirit consciousness starts at 5 kilometers and the limit is 50 kilometers. However, the range of a mid-level fiendish demon's spirit consciousness starts at 50 kilometers and can reach 500 kilometers at the limit. The old ape said, "You're a low-level fiendish demon and haven't cultivated to the peak. Even if you're a peak low-level fiendish demon, your spirit consciousness won't exceed 50 kilometers. However, you must know that the territorial lords fighting for the spots to cultivate in the blood sea are all mid-level fiendish demons. You won't be able to win against them for this alone." Su Zimo smiled and replied indifferently, "That might not be the case." The old ape exclaimed softly. He could tell what Su Zimo was implying. After a moment of silence, he did not continue asking and merely lamented, "It's truly an anomaly for a low-level fiendish demon to be a territorial lord." 3 days later. Although Su Zimo passed through the thick black clouds, he could still sense a faint stench of blood. Furthermore, the speed of the black clouds was gradually slowing down as well. He realized that they had arrived at the 1,000-year blood sea. Before long, the demons sensed the black clouds fading gradually and descended. They regained their vision and gazed around. Beneath them was a vast plain that stretched as far as the eye could see. Many fiendish demons were gathered on the plain and most of them were in human form. However, all of them had rumbling demonic chi and a torrential malevolent aura. The crowd below was bustling and it was extremely lively. The most eye-catching thing was the central region of the plain. It was incomparably scarlet. The 1,000-year blood sea. The blood sea was not a sea, but a lake. However, the lake was way too large and it was difficult to see from the ground. The demons had to look down from midair to be able to see the entirety of the blood sea. Su Zimo merely took a single glance at the blood sea and his expression changed all of a sudden. Right at that moment, ripples appeared on the blood sea. The ripples seemed to have transformed into a human face within the blood sea. It was a blood-colored human face. Furthermore, the blood-colored human face seemed to be smiling in a sinister and frightening manner. Psst! Su Zimo gasped and shuddered. He focused his gaze once more and the ripples on the blood sea had already disappeared. The surface of the sea was calm and the blood-colored human face was gone. Su Zimo's face was slightly pale as he stared at the blood sea for a long time. The blood-colored human face did not appear either. It was as though just now was merely a figment of his imagination. Su Zimo shook his head and let out a long breath before descending with the demons. Chapter 845. There were only slightly more than 1,000 fiend demons from Ape Chatter Ridge. However, there were already more than 10,000 fiend demons gathered on the plains. Furthermore, the number was still increasing. Demons were gathering at the 1,000-demon meet. It was not only the fiend demons of the various territories, even some fiend demons without factions wanted to join in the fun. The plains below were clearly divided into 7 distinct regions surrounding the 1,000-year blood sea. The old ape led the demons and landed in one of the regions. He. The moment the demons landed, a strange laughter sounded from the side. Not far away, a skinny old man with a yellow face and a goatee crossed his arms and said in an eccentric manner, "Old man Yuan, you're still alive?" The goatee was surrounded by demons like stars surrounding the moon. Furthermore, although the goatee looked skinny, the aura he exuded was extremely sharp and domineering. Humph! The old ape glared and sneered, "Old goat, why would I leave before you when you're not dead yet?" That's the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak. In the crowd, Yuan Ling, whispered to Monkey, "That old goat has always been on bad terms with Grandpa." The two of them fought twice and the old goat lost both times. Monkey and Yuan Ling fought every single day in Ape Chatter Ridge. However, the two of them seemed to have gotten much closer. Yuan Ling would take the initiative to tell Monkey about such things but not Su Zimo and the others. "That old monkey is really energetic." Not far away, a voice sounded diagonally, "I heard that there was an internal conflict in Ape Chatter Ridge a few days ago but that old monkey suppressed it with a few punches and kicks." The person who spoke was dressed in black robes and had a well-proportioned figure. Seated on a high seat, his gaze was cold and his lips were pursed tightly, he exuded a ferocious aura from head to toe. "That's the overlord of Silvermoon Valley." Yuan Ling, whispered, "That's an ancient remnant beast, the Silvermoon Wolf. From what the two of you have said, Brother Yuan is truly vigorous despite his age." In the area next to the Silvermoon Valley, a beautiful woman wearing a colorful gauze said coquettishly, "Even I am a little tempted." Needless to say, anyone who was qualified to speak at this moment was an overlord. "Don't look at him." Yuan Ling, glared at the monkey and said, "This woman is the overlord of Thousand Snake Island, the most vicious. Be careful, if you look at her, she might dig out your eyeballs." TSK. Monkey pouted in disdain. When the old ape heard the overlord of Thousand Snake Island's words, he merely smiled faintly. Don't call me brother. I'm old enough to be your grandfather. Brother Yuan is so bad, taking advantage of me. The Thousand Snake Island's overlord pouted coquettishly, but a cold glint flashed across her eyes. This woman looked delicate and weak, but no one dared to underestimate her. To be able to become an overlord, one's hands were stained with blood, and one's feet stepped on countless corpses. Currently, 4 out of the 7 great rulers had arrived. Su Zimo and the others looked ordinary in the crowd of demons and did not attract much attention. At this moment, a golden cloud floated over from the distant sky. If one were to look at it carefully, they would notice that there seemed to be tiny flames burning on the golden cloud. In the blink of an eye, the golden clouds dispersed. Thousands of fiend demons descended. Their leader was a man draped in golden battle armor. He was tall and muscular with a pair of bull horns on his head, striding over in a majestic manner. Ha 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 ha! The person who arrived roared in laughter. Old ape, you're early this time round. Let's spar when we're free. Ling Hu whispered, why is there another opponent? Our overlord has so many enemies, don't spout nonsense. Yuan Ling said, this is the overlord of Golden Flames Mountain. He's the closest to Grandpa. The old ape smiled bitterly. Forget it, I'm not going to spar with you at my age. Cuckoo. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed from the distant horizon. Immediately after, a resplendent glow filled the skies. Countless petals scattered and a fragrance filled the air. A large group of fiend demons tore through the air on auspicious clouds. In the middle of the room was a luxurious sedan. Inside the sedan was a fat man with a big belly and fat intestines. Around him, dozens of young women followed with baskets of flowers that scattered petals from time to time. Within the carriage, there were even women massaging the fatty's legs and arms and feeding him wine and spirit fruits. They were extremely happy. This fatty sure knows how to enjoy himself, the overlord of Golden Flames Mountain sneered. However, no matter how he tries to hide it, he can't hide the stench on his body. That's the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley. His true form is a jade-eyed toad, Yuan Ling said. A jade-eyed toad, a pure-blooded ferocious beast. Its eyes were jade green and its body was venomous. Anyone who came into contact with it would die and it could devour all living beings. It would even dare to eat the corpse of a fallen dragon. 6 of the 7 overlords had appeared. The demons did not have to wait for long before a hazy mist appeared in the distance. The mist was extremely powerful and even the demons could not detect it with their spirit consciousnesses. When the mist came close, fiendish demons walked out one after another. Their leader had a cold expression and he wore pitch-black armor. Even his face was covered, revealing only his eyes. His eyes were cold and ferocious, it was shuddering. The overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp had arrived. The true form of the overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp was an ancient gigantic crocodile. The 7 overlords of Ape Chatter Ridge, Levitating Goat Peak, Golden Flames Mountain, Vermilion Cloud Valley, Silvermoon Valley, Thousand Snake Island and Confusion Mist Swamp were gathered. A massive spirit consciousness fluctuation reverberated through the air but there was no sound. Before long, the 7 overlords left their original spots one after another and gathered together to discuss something. Su Zimo guessed that there was a high chance that it had something to do with the stars in daytime. Everyone from Ape Chatter Ridge, long time no see, right then, a few fiend demons from Levitating Goat Peak, Silvermoon Valley and Thousand Snake Island walked over with hostile expressions and provocative gazes. More than half of the 10 great territorial lords have changed after 1,000 years. A skinny man from Levitating Goat Peak surveyed his surroundings and raised his brow, asking, could Ing Li and the others have already advanced to high-level fiend demons? There's also a possibility that they've cultivated to the Grand Demon realm. Ha ha ha. The fiend demons from Silvermoon Valley and Thousand Snake Island roared in laughter. They had long heard that there was internal strife in Ape Chatter Ridge where 4 of the 5 protectors were killed and many mid-level fiend demons were injured. The losses were immense. The reason why they were here was to mock Ape Chatter Ridge. Not really, a fiend demon from Ape Chatter Ridge replied honestly. Ing Li and the others rebelled and were killed. Although a few of the 10 great territorial lords are dead, there will naturally be replacements. Replacements? The skinny man from Levitating Goat Peak swept his gaze across the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge and could not help but burst into laughter. He pointed to Su Zimo's group and said, "Don't tell me that the 10 great territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge are going to be replacements with these few low-level fiend demons?" Ha ha ha. The demons of Silvermoon Valley and Levitating Goat Peak laughed even harder. Only low-level fiend demons could enter this place for the 1,000 demon meet this time round. However, low-level fiend demons could only serve as servants and serve tea. The dozens of young girls beside the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley were low-level fiend demons. The fiend demons of Ape Chatter Ridge had odd expressions when they saw the demons of Levitating Goat Peak pointing at Su Zimo. Chapter 846. The overlord of Silvermoon Valley said slowly, "Everyone, what do you guys think about the appearance of a universal phenomenon in Thousand Demon Valley?" The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley chuckled. The other overlords exchanged glances with calm expressions and did not say anything. The 7 overlords had all lived for thousands of years. Even if they had their own thoughts, they would not easily let others see through them. "Silvermoon, what do you mean by that?" The overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp asked with an indifferent expression with a firm voice. The overlord of Silvermoon Valley smiled gently. The appearance of stars in daytime could be the reappearance of an ancient ruin or the opening of a secret ground. In any case, this is a huge matter for Thousand Demon Valley. Although we usually fight amongst ourselves, there's no harm for us to put aside our past grudges and join forces to investigate if an ancient ruin or secret ground opens. Of course, the overlord of Thousand Snake Island smiled coquettishly. "I agree." The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain sneered internally and cursed for hypocrisy before asking loudly, "If only a single utmost treasure appears, who will it belong to?" A cold glint flashed through the eyes of the 7 overlords. "At that time, we'll have to rely on our own capabilities." The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak said coldly. Actually, at the end of the day, even if everyone were to join forces, they would all have their own agendas and were wary of one another. If any utmost treasure were to appear, there would definitely be a bloodbath. Right then, as though he sensed something, the old ape turned around. There seemed to be some trouble over at the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge. A few fiend demons of Levitating Goat Peak, Silvermoon Valley and Thousand Snake Island were discussing something with the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge with mocking expressions. "Old Man Yuan, let's not interfere in the matters of the younger generation. Let them do as they please," the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak smirked and said with a fake smile. "That's right," the overlord of Thousand Snake Island added coquettishly, "this is the Thousand Demon Meet. It's normal even if there are conflicts between the juniors under us. As overlords, there's no need for us to interfere." The old ape asked with a strange expression, "Are you sure we don't have to stop them?" "Brother Yuan, let's continue chatting. There's no need to interfere in the conflicts between the juniors," the overlord of Silvermoon Valley chuckled. "Oh," the old ape nodded without changing his expression. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain had the best relationship with the old ape. He knew that Ape Chatter Ridge had suffered great losses in this internal strife. More than half of the 10 territorial lords had died. "Are you sure you're all right?" The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain asked telepathically, "Why don't I ask a few of my lords to help you?" "No need." The old macaque chuckled. "We don't know who's going to be anxious first." "Hey!" The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak had a haughty expression as he pointed at Su Zimo's nose and hollered, "Low-level fiend demons, don't stand here and be an eyesore. Get lost." Su Zimo's expression remained unchanged. There was no need for him to make an appearance in such a matter. The three fiend demons before him were not worth his time. You better get the hell away from me. Solitary Cloud stood at the side and remarked coldly. The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak narrowed his gaze and scanned Solitary Cloud with his spirit consciousness before saying in an eccentric manner, it's a WIRM. You want to stand up for someone? How dare a mere goat spirit act so arrogantly? Get lost. Solitary Cloud's gaze was cold and he exuded a chilling killing intent as he retorted. A WIRM that has cultivated for less than 1,000 years is no different from a snake. You must have a death wish. The eyes of the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak shone brightly and he attacked without hesitation. There was naturally a reason why he dared to challenge Solitary Cloud Peak. He was not a nobody in Levitating Goat Peak and was one of the 10 territorial lords. Although he was ranked at the bottom, he was not someone ordinary fiend demons could match up against. He could tell that Solitary Cloud had cultivated for less than 1,000 years. That was the reason why he dared to attack directly. Solitary Cloud harumphed coldly and strode forward when the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak threw a punch. His blood chi surged and he threw a punch as well. Bang! The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak shuddered and staggered 3 steps back with a shocked expression. Although Solitary Cloud was strong 100 years ago, he was definitely not a match for the 10 territorial lords. However, the 100 years of cultivation by Su Zimo's side had been of great help to him. Kill! The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak advanced once more and his pitch-black sleeves fluttered. 2 cold glints of light shot out and pierced towards Solitary Cloud's face. Those were 2 spears that were extremely fast. Solitary Cloud opened his mouth and spat out his WIRM bone scissors. His spirit consciousness moved and dermic powers surged, causing the WIRM bone scissors to expand rapidly and cut towards the 2 incoming spears. 2 WIRMs soared into the air. Snap! The WIRM bone scissors sliced down and sliced the 2 spears into 4. The 4 spears fell and their bodies dimmed, they were completely crippled by the WIRM bone scissors. How dare you destroy my dermic weapons? The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak was enraged and his glabella shone. 2 cold glints of light floated out and expanded rapidly in midair. Just now, the 2 spears were merely his ordinary dermic weapons. But now, the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak had summoned his destiny dermic weapon, a pair of scythes that shone with silver light. The blades were filled with fine spikes and had a menacing aura. Humph! Solitary Cloud sneered, destiny dermic weapon. How dare you embarrass yourself with it? Cut it! Solitary Cloud controlled the WIRM bone scissors and 2 WIRMs soared into the air, roaring into the skies. White light shone brightly and coiled around the pair of scythes like 2 blinding white chains. Snap! Snap! The WIRM bone scissors sliced thrice. The pair of scythes snapped with a single sound. The expression of the fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak changed starkly as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He glared at Solitary Cloud with a venomous gaze. His destiny dermic weapon was destroyed and his spirit was connected to it, he was severely injured as well. He had refined that dermic weapon for more than 2,000 years. Now that it was destroyed, it was equivalent to more than 2,000 years of effort being wasted. That was a huge blow. Back in the Battle of Howling Moon Mountain, the WIRM bone scissors were injured by the bronze square tripod. Later on, it was refined by Su Zimo with the secret skill of the Een spirit section and was healed a long time ago. It was even stronger than before. How ruthless! The fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley had a grim expression and said deeply, I'll take you on. Solitary Cloud swept his gaze to the fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island at the side and sneered, the 2 of you can come at me together. It'll save you the trouble of scheming to hurt me in the dark, woman. The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island was not angry that her intentions were exposed and merely smiled brightly. I'll gladly oblige then. Brazen. The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak said hatefully. Solitary Cloud had always been brazen and arrogant to begin with. It was only after he submitted to Su Zimo 100 years ago and followed the latter that he restrained himself. If he was against anyone else, his true nature would be revealed. As a WIRM, he had the right to be brazen as well. Ha ha ha. Solitary Cloud burst into laughter. Seems like you're indignant as well. I'll count you in. I'll take all of you on. Alright, don't regret it. The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak growled deeply and demonic chi surged from his body. His mind went wild and in the blink of an eye, he reverted to his true form. Roar. On the other side, the fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley let out a roar and reverted to his true form as well. The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island stuck out her tongue gently. In the blink of an eye, her tongue turned into a snake that hissed. The three fiend demons did not dare to be careless and were prepared to revert to their true forms for an all-out fight. Chapter 847. Look, there's a fight over there. He's already reverted to his true form. Why is there such a huge commotion? What's going on? The territorial lords of Silvermoon Valley, Levitating Goat Peak and Thousand Snake Island came to challenge him. A WIRM of Ape Chatter Ridge accepted the challenge and both sides fought. The commotion at Ape Chatter Ridge had already attracted the attention of the demons on the plains. What's the background of that WIRM? He can take on 3 people single-handedly. I don't know. I've never seen him before. He must be one of the newly conferred territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge, right? The demons discussed fervently. On the side of Levitating Goat Peak, a gray-haired man assumed a lotus position at the front of the mid-level fiend demons. His face was scrawny as he glared coldly at the battlefield not far away. Young master, the WIRM of Ape Chatter Ridge might be a match for you, the gray-haired man pouted his lips and said in disdain, this WIRM's Tao is still shallow and there's nothing to fear. He'll only be qualified to fight me if he cultivates for another 100 years or so. In the direction of Silvermoon Valley. Sir, this WIRM doesn't seem easy to deal with. A silver-robed man stood at the front of the territorial lords with a cold expression as a fiend demon behind him whispered. It's fine, the silver-robed man waved it off. If they still can't win, I'll take action personally to subdue this WIRM. If he refuses to submit, don't blame me for crippling him. In front of Thousand Snake Island. A woman with heavy makeup licked her lips and looked at the WIRM soaring in midair with a cold glint in her eyes. I wonder how the flesh of a WIRM tastes like. The woman in makeup murmured softly. A storm raged on the battlefield. Solitary Cloud did not underestimate the 3 territorial lords and reverted to his true form. His slender and muscular body coiled in the voids. His body was covered in dense scales that had already turned from gray to slightly white and shone with a crystalline glow. A pair of sharp claws protruded from his abdomen. The most eye-catching thing was the small bump that protruded from the center of Solitary Cloud's glabella. 100 years ago, the bump was not obvious. But now, the bump was distinguishable with a single glance. When the bump matured and broke through the WIRM skin and grew into a true horn, it would signify a complete metamorphosis. The WIRM was about to transform into a dragon. Roar! Solitary Cloud roared and his blood chi surged majestically. The unique bloodline of pure-blooded ferocious beasts had a clear suppression against the fiend demons of Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island and Silvermoon Valley. Kill! The 3 fiendish demons roared furiously. The fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley summoned a silver beam of light that flashed in midair and slashed towards Solitary Cloud's neck at an extremely fast speed. This dermic artifact was refined from the scales of a great ancient demon. Its edges were incomparably sharp and could cut through gold and jade. It could even cut through divine weapons. Whoosh! Whoosh! The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island opened her mouth and spat out a dense cluster of green poisonous needles towards Solitary Cloud. The levitating goat peak fiendish demon took a deep breath. Although his destiny dermic weapon was shattered, he still had other dermic weapons in his storage bag. Whoosh! The fiend demon of levitating goat peak summoned another saber that emitted an extremely chilling aura. It tore through the air and slashed towards Solitary Cloud. Instantly, the three fiendish demons attacked at the same time. Cut it! Solitary Cloud was fearless and controlled the WIRM bone scissors to slice forward viciously. Crack! The saber of the fiend demon of levitating goat peak was cut apart once more. Rumble! Boom! Boom! Solitary Cloud's glabella shone and released a shocking dermic art. Apocalyptic torrent appeared beneath him and surged forward with a frightening might. The three fiendish demons were shocked. This torrent truly had the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. Although the poisonous needles of the fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island were powerful, they were weak and scattered in all directions against the torrent. The circular disc of the fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley tore through the torrent and slashed Solitary Cloud's body. Solitary Cloud tried his best to dodge, but he was still too slow. A bloody wound appeared on his body. Thankfully, his physique was strong and his blood chi was robust. The defensive power of his scales was extremely frightening as well. Otherwise, Solitary Cloud would have been sliced into two by that attack. You have a death wish. Although Solitary Cloud was injured, the three fiendish demons were fighting against the torrent with all their might and could not break free for the time being. Solitary Cloud dove into the torrent and vanished instantly. The WIRM race specialized in controlling water and could manipulate clouds and rain. After entering the torrent, his speed was even faster and he arrived before the fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley in the blink of an eye, swinging his tail viciously. Piak! The body of the fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley was sent flying. His chest caved in and his robes were torn as his flesh was mangled in an incomparably tragic manner. There was clearly an abnormal fluctuation in the torrent. Solitary Cloud had sensed it long ago. Not far away, the massive body of the fiend demon of levitating goat peak went against the torrent and stabbed towards Solitary Cloud with a pair of sharp horns. Exclamation point. Solitary Cloud leaped into the air and extended his claws that shone with a cold glint as he scratched the spine of the fiend demon of levitating goat peak. Blood gushed out. Solitary Cloud grabbed the spine of the fiend demon of levitating goat peak and pulled him away from the torrent, tossing him to the ground casually. It would be difficult for him to recover from that severe injury without dozens of years. Solitary Cloud tilted his head and dodged the incoming bite of the fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island. Turning his head, he bit down on the waist of the fiend demon. Poof! With that, Solitary Cloud snapped the fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island. Ah! 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 The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island shrieked. Fresh blood spewed out with a pungent stench. The fiend demon of Thousand Snake Island said harshly, "My body is filled with poisonous blood. You won't be able to live for long after injuring me." Humph! A mocking look flashed through Solitary Cloud's eyes. "How can your poisonous blood taint my bloodline? I'll be able to purge it away after cultivating for a few days." Although he was a WIRM, he had a trace of the bloodline of dragons flowing through his body after all. That trace of dragon's bloodline alone was enough to preserve his life and give him time to purge the remaining poison from his body. For someone like Su Zimo, a poisonous blood of this level was of no threat to him at all. In the blink of an eye, the three fiend demons were defeated and severely injured. The demons were shocked. A gray-haired youth stood up from levitating goat peak and walked over with a grim expression. A silver-robed man from Silvermoon Valley had already moved with a cold expression as well. A woman in makeup strode over from Thousand Snake Island. "Look over there." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak is alarmed. That person should be the #1 territorial lord of Silvermoon Valley. The alluring beauty of Thousand Snake Island is here as well. The demons were excited and discussed loudly. Beside the 1,000-year Blood Sea, the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak harumphed coldly with a terrible expression, "Old monkey, to think that Ape Chatter Ridge would have such a WYRM. Interesting. If I'm not wrong, this WYRM should be one of the 10 great territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge, right? What's his rank?" The overlord of Silvermoon Valley was rather calm as he asked with a smile. "He's not a territorial lord," the old ape shook his head with a strange expression. "Not a territorial lord?" The overlord of Thousand Snake Island laughed. "Brother Yuan, you sure know how to joke. What is this WYRM if not a territorial lord?" "He's someone else's mount," the old ape replied indifferently. The expressions of the overlords present changed. Chapter 848. Young Master, I'm sorry, I've lost. The fiend demon of Levitating Goat Peak struggled to his feet. There were a few bloody holes on his back that were still bleeding, and he said softly with a pale expression, "Scram! Don't embarrass me here." The gray-haired man from Levitating Goat Peak who had walked over had no sympathy in his eyes as he berated coldly. Yes. The fiendish demons of Levitating Goat Peak did not dare to complain. The gray-haired man was the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and a direct descendant of the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak. Among the juniors, he had the greatest potential and was the strongest. It was rumored in Levitating Goat Peak that this young lord would definitely take over the position of overlord of Levitating Goat Peak in the future. Even though the fiendish demon was furious, he did not dare to show any emotion. He could only lower his head and drag his broken body back. At the same time, the #1 territorial lord of Silvermoon Valley and the woman in makeup from Thousand Snake Island had arrived at Ape Chatter Ridge. Anyone could tell that the three of them did not come with good intentions. Hee, Ape Chatter Ridge is going to suffer now. That vicious flood dragon is already poisoned and injured. It definitely won't be able to stop the three of them. The first lord of the Silvermoon Valley and the woman in makeup from the Thousand Snake Island came to the Blood Sea to cultivate 1,000 years ago. Think about it, after 1,000 years, how strong are they now? The young master of Levitating Goat Peak is not to be trifled with either. Some were gloating while others were watching the show. The demons were naturally happy to see such a scene. Otherwise, the myriad demon meat would only be about eating and drinking. What fun could there be? By the looks of it, the three of them are prepared to attack and cripple the territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge. Very likely. I reckon that Ape Chatter Ridge won't be able to get a seat in the Blood Sea this time. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak stopped in his tracks and swept his cold gaze across the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge one by one with a condescending aura. The eyes of the Ape Chatter Ridge demons flickered. Most of them did not dare to look him in the eye. Only a few people remained calm. Although Solitary Cloud's bloodline was poisoned and he was injured, he stood proudly and glared at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak coldly, mocking, "Why? You guys want to get back at me? If you want to beat a dog, you have to look at its owner." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was expressionless as he said slowly, "You'll have to pay the price for hurting my men. I can give you a way out." Right at this moment, the silver-robed man approached and said in a low voice, "If you submit to me now and become my mount, I can pretend that nothing happened today." Ha ha ha. Solitary Cloud burst into laughter and glanced sideways at the silver-robed man, asking, "You think you're worthy?" He was a flood dragon that was going to transform into a dragon in the future. Other than the true dragon, who else could make him willingly submit to? The silver-robed man's face sank. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he said, "My patience is limited. You'd better not try to provoke me. Why are you wasting time with him? Just kill him." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak said coldly. The woman in makeup from the Thousand Snake Island also laughed. She licked her lips and said, I agree. Which one of you will attack? Let me have a taste of the ferocious flood dragon's flesh. A ferocious glint flashed across Solitary Cloud's eyes. Although he was stained with the poisonous blood, he was unwilling to show weakness. Just as he was about to attack, a fair hand appeared on his shoulder. The hand patted his shoulder gently. Instantly, Solitary Cloud calmed down and took half a step back. He looked at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the other two with a pitiful gaze. Immediately after, a person walked out from behind him. Scarlet hair, green robes and delicate features, it was Su Zimo. Su Zimo had an indifferent expression. The three of you, the reason why he can't submit to you guys is because he's the mount of someone else and already has a master. The three of them frowned when a low-level fiend demon suddenly appeared before them while the young master of Levitating Goat Peak was in a standoff with Solitary Cloud. In their eyes, low-level fiend demons were ants. Prior to this, they had not even noticed Su Zimo's existence. Oh. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak sneered casually with a mocking expression. He already has a master. Is it you? Immediately after, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak retracted his smile and said coldly, a low-level fiend demon like you has no right to interrupt our conversation. Get lost. What a coincidence, Su Zimo was not annoyed and merely smiled gently. His master is me. Ha ha ha. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the other two exchanged glances and paused for a moment before bursting into laughter, as though they had just heard the funniest joke in the world. A WIRM, a pure-blooded ferocious beast and a mid-level fiend demon, was the mount of a low-level fiend demon? The three of them laughed brazenly. However, after a while, the three of them realized that the atmosphere was a little strange. Although they were laughing, none of the fiend demons of Ape Chatter Ridge were laughing. Furthermore, the demons of Ape Chatter Ridge were looking at the three of them as though they were idiots. The silver-robed man was the first to react and frowned. The woman in makeup narrowed her eyes and pondered. Both of them had cultivated for thousands of years and would naturally not make the mistake of underestimating the enemy. However, on second thought, the person before them was nothing special and was merely a low-level fiend demon. Even if he had some tricks up his sleeve, he was indeed not worth their attention. There were way too many methods a mid-level fiend demon could use to kill a low-level fiend demon. Furthermore, they were top-tier existences among mid-level fiend demons. If they could not even take down a low-level fiend demon, wouldn't their thousands of years of cultivation have all been for naught? The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was still rearing his head in laughter, as though he did not notice anything amiss around him. All of a sudden, his laughter vanished. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak suddenly attacked. His attack was more like a sneak attack that came without any warning and was as swift as lightning. The demons of Ape Chatter Ridge merely felt their vision blur and the young master of Levitating Goat Peak had already vanished. So fast. The demons were alarmed. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's gaze was cold and menacing. Instantly, he arrived before Su Zimo with no trace of a smile on his face. Kill! The young master of Levitating Goat Peak hollered. In the eyes of the young master of Levitating Goat Peak, Su Zimo was already a dead man by now. His movement technique was extremely fast and coupled with his sudden attack, even mid-level fiend demons would not be able to react in time, let alone low-level fiend demons. However, he was slightly stunned when his gaze met with Su Zimo's. There was a hint of mockery in Su Zimo's eyes. Get lost! A loud roar echoed in his ears. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak felt as though he was struck by lightning, as though his eardrums were about to be pierced. Immediately after, a palm slapped him heavily on the face and the tremendous force almost shattered half of his face. Piak! The young master of Levitating Goat Peak charged quickly but retreated even faster. Right in front of everyone, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak had just charged over when he was sent flying by Su Zimo's slap with a roar. The strange thing was that Su Zimo seemed to have sensed it long ago and struck in advance. It was as though the young master of Levitating Goat Peak had slapped himself. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak thought that he could hide his intentions from everyone. However, he did not know that Su Zimo possessed an unfathomable spirit perception. The moment his killing intent was triggered, Su Zimo was already prepared. The demons were in an uproar. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak could be considered as the strongest territorial lord of Levitating Goat Peak. However, he was sent flying by a low-level fiend demon with a single slap. If the demons had not witnessed it personally, none of them would have believed it. Chapter 849. Beside the Blood Sea. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak had a grim expression. It was as though Su Zimo's slap had landed on his face and it stung. The overlords of Silvermoon Valley and Thousand Snake Island frowned slightly. The three of them were not the only ones. The other overlords were shocked as well. Although they were conversing, the commotion over there could not be hidden from the senses of the seven overlords. The overlords present found it amusing when they saw the low-level fiend demon stand out and boast shamelessly that the WYRM was his mount. However, from the looks of it, there was truly something strange about this matter. Could this demon be cultivating some sort of cultivation technique that conceals his cultivation realm? Almost at the same time, the spirit consciousnesses of the six overlords of Levitating Goat Peak, Silvermoon Valley and Thousand Snake Island descended upon Su Zimo. Before long, the six overlords could sense that Su Zimo was a low-level fiend demon. However, they could not tell the true form of this low-level fiend demon. The overlords of Silvermoon Valley and Thousand Snake Island heaved a sigh of relief and were relieved for the time being. If it was only a low-level fiend demon, it should not be much of a threat. The reason why the young master of Levitating Goat Peak was defeated so quickly was most likely because he had underestimated his opponent. The old ape sneered internally, but his expression did not change. This bunch of fiend demons wanted to bully Ape Chatter Ridge, but they had truly hit a wall this time round. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge's formation, the silver-robed man's heart skipped a beat and he nodded solemnly. Interesting. You do have some tricks up your sleeves. He could tell that apart from underestimating his opponent, the reason why the young master of Levitating Goat Peak was defeated so quickly was because he was momentarily stunned by the low-level fiend demon's roar. Sound domain secret skill, huh? I know a little about it as well. The silver-robed man strode forward and howled into the skies. AWO. A wolf howl sounded. The demons in front of Ape Chatter Ridge's formation were shocked. Although the sound was not loud, it was extremely strange and caused their blood chi to rumble in an extremely uncomfortable manner. Ah! Some of the fiend demons could not take it and grunted dully, covering their ears with both hands as they hunched over bitterly. As expected of the wailing of ghosts and howling of wolves. It's so unpleasant to hear. Su Zimo's expression did not change. He also took a step forward, stretched out his palm, and pressed it down on the silver-robed man's face. He shouted, "Shut up!" The group of demons stood at the back. They were further away and could not withstand it. As for Su Zimo, he was standing closest to the silver-robed man, but he didn't seem to be affected at all. He even had the strength to counterattack. What's wrong with this low-level fiendish demon? Why is he completely fine? This demon can't be deaf, right? The fiendish demons watching from afar were puzzled. How could they know that Su Zimo, who cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, had such a strong blood chi that even the primordial 9 races could not match? Such a powerful sound domain secret technique posed no threat to him at all. Whoosh! Su Zimo flipped the sky and suppressed it. The wind howled. A suffocating air current surged into the silver-robed man's mouth. His howl was interrupted and he only had time to say a single word. The silver-robed man's blood chi rumbled and the flesh on his arms expanded. Instantly, his robes burst apart, revealing two muscular arms. Herg! The silver-robed man exhaled and raised his arms to block. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The sound of flesh colliding and bones grinding could be heard in a cringe-inducing manner. The silver-robed man crossed his arms and resisted Su Zimo's palm with all his might. Both sides seemed to be evenly matched. However, the silver-robed man's face was flushed red and his blood chi was pushed to its limits. Green veins popped up on his arms one after another and his muscles intertwined like spirit snakes. It was a menacing sight. However, Su Zimo was much calmer. His expression was normal and even his breathing was abnormally steady. The silver-robed man did not dare to release his strength at all. The moment he relaxed, Su Zimo's palm would crush his head into smithereens. Compared to the two menacing and thick arms of the silver-robed man, Su Zimo's arms looked extremely slender. His palms were fair and his fingers were slender, sparkling like jade. However, those fair and slender palms suppressed the silver-robed man so tightly that he could not break free at all. This was truly a case of brute strength taking down everything. What's the true form of that low-level fiend demon? What a strong physique! What terrifying blood chi! Humph! If that woman from Thousand Snake Island were to attack, that low-level fiend demon would definitely die. Just as the group of demons were feeling shocked and emotional, an even more shocking scene took place. Su Zimo held the silver-robed man down with one hand and strode forward at the same time. He reached out with his other palm and enveloped the woman in makeup from Thousand Snake Island. Come over as well. Su Zimo hollered and demonic chi spewed out from his palm. With a loud boom, he crushed down in a blanketing manner. All the demons were shocked. None of them had expected that Su Zimo would have the strength to spare and take the initiative to attack the woman in makeup while suppressing the silver-robed man. The woman in makeup was startled as well. To begin with, she was tempted to attack but hesitated. But now, it was no longer up to her. She had no choice but to attack. Humph! The woman in makeup harumphed coldly and reached out with her tender hands. Clenching them into fists, she punched towards Su Zimo's palm. Thousand Snake Island specialized in poison and her physique and blood chi could not compare to the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and the silver-robed man. The demons could not understand why the woman in makeup wanted to attack the man in makeup with her weakness. However, just as the fist and palm were about to collide, something happened. Suddenly, two sharp, curved objects extended from between the fingers of the woman in makeup. They resembled two venomous fangs and shone with a ghastly green light. Since you're so arrogant, I'll teach you a lesson. A cold glint flashed through the eyes of the woman in makeup as she revealed a vicious smile. The two venomous fangs between her fingers were her destiny dermic weapon and were laced with lethal poison. Even pure-blooded ferocious beasts would be doomed if they were stabbed. She believed that it would be extremely easy for her to kill a low-level fiend demon with that poison. At the same time, the silver-robed man seized the opportunity to counterattack when he saw that. Ah! The silver-robed man roared and his face turned purplish-green. Channeling all his power of blood chi, he gathered it in his arms and pushed upwards. Unknowingly, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak had crawled up. Although his cheeks were swollen, his combat strength was still present. His eyes were filled with venomous hatred as he seized the opportunity to charge over as well. In the eyes of the demons, Su Zimo was already in grave danger after the powerful counterattack of the three fiend demons. The tide seemed to have turned. On the battlefield, Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly when he sensed the counterattack of the silver-robed man. Exerting strength in his palm, he harumphed coldly. Kneel. Instantly, the silver-robed man's counterattack vanished and he was suppressed by Su Zimo's palm strike. With a thud, the silver-robed man knelt on the ground. All the demons were shocked. This demon still had strength to spare. On the other side, Su Zimo seemed to have sensed the danger long ago. Clang! Clang! 2 fingernails extended from his fingers that were as sharp as swords. Su Zimo bent his fingers slightly and flicked gently, landing on the 2 venomous fangs of the woman in makeup. Clang! The 2 venomous fangs were repelled by Su Zimo's 2 fingers. The woman in makeup was shocked and retreated hurriedly. Right then, the young master of levitating goat peak closed in with a swollen face and a murderous aura. Su Zimo's gaze swept across like lightning. The young master of levitating goat peak's heart skipped a beat and his aura diminished by more than half. He retreated a few steps in fear and did not dare to attack. Chapter 850. The woman in makeup retreated with a dark expression, not daring to advance recklessly. With just 2 fingers, Su Zimo sent her destiny dermic weapon flying. That terrifying power was something that made her extremely wary. The silver-robed man held onto Su Zimo's palm with both arms and channeled all his strength to his limits. However, that palm did not budge at all. It was as though the legendary Mount Meru of the Buddhist monasteries was crushing down on his head and he had no chance to struggle at all. Right now, the only method he could use was the essence spirit secret skill of the Silvermoon Wolf race. However, he did not dare to do so. He was right beneath Su Zimo's palm. Although the attack of essence spirit secret skills was fast, Su Zimo could destroy his essence spirit with a single thought. He did not dare to take the risk. The young master of levitating goat peak retreated a couple of steps with a dark gaze and cursed internally. He had not expected the silver-robed man and woman in makeup to be defeated so quickly. By the time he arrived, it was already a stalemate between him and the low-level fiend demon. This change was way too fast and all his previous plans were for naught. Furthermore, Su Zimo's aura was way too strong and his gaze was frightening. As though he was possessed, he retreated a couple of steps in fright and froze on the spot, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. F***CK. The young master of levitating goat peak was scared off. That low-level fiend demon's combat strength is so frightening. He shouldn't be a nobody. Why haven't I heard of him before? The 3 of them were defeated way too quickly. Could their reputation be for show? The expressions of the young master of levitating goat peak and the other 2 turned extremely terrible when they heard the discussions around them. Initially, they wanted to teach the territorial lords of Ape Chatter Ridge a lesson when they came to provoke them. It would be best if they could cripple a few of them. To think that the 3 of them would be suppressed by a low-level fiend demon. Little brother, aren't you going to let go? Unknowingly, the overlord of Silvermoon Valley had already arrived before Ape Chatter Ridge and glared at Su Zimo expressionlessly. Behind him, the other 6 overlords were present. The overlords of Levitating Goat Peak and Thousand Snake Island looked at Su Zimo with cold gazes. The other overlords' gazes were filled with curiosity and amusement. The old ape stood at the side as well. The reason why he did not stop the overlord of Silvermoon Valley and the others was because he was worried that Su Zimo would be rash and kill the 3 overlords. Sweeping his gaze, Su Zimo understood what the old ape meant. In reality, he had no intention of killing the 3 fiend essence spirit secret realms. The reason why he came here today was to cultivate in the blood have a grub. Because of Su Zimo's essence spirit of blood, the overlords of the blood have a taboo, Su, goat, Su. Su Zimo retracted his palm and cupped his fists towards the overlords before him. He was calm and composed, neither servile nor overbearing. To be fair, it was rare for mid-level or even high-level fiend demons to be able to maintain their composure under the gazes of 7 overlords, let alone low-level fiend demons. B to form, the, overs, goat. Have a. Good. Very good. The overlord of Silvermoon Valley nodded repeatedly with a mysterious glint in his eyes. The overlord of Thousand Snake Island chuckled as well and said coyly, "Little brother, you've only cultivated for slightly more than 100 years and yet you're already so strong. Even I'm starting to admire you." Little bastard, give me your life. The silver-robed man stood up and heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, he could not hold it in any longer and a silver moon appeared on his glabella. He was about to kill. The reason why he dared to attack was naturally because the overlord of Silvermoon Valley was present. Piak! A crisp sound echoed as a slap landed heavily on the silver-robed man's face. His spirit consciousness was shattered by that slap the moment he condensed it. The silver-robed man was stunned. The demons present were dumbfounded as well. The one who slapped the silver-robed man was the overlord of Silvermoon Valley. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Get lost! The overlord of Silvermoon Valley hollered and glared at the silver-robed man. The silver-robed man was indignant and grit his teeth in hatred. He glared at Su Zimo fiercely and blamed this humiliation on Su Zimo. Sorry for the lack of discipline. I've embarrassed myself in front of everyone, the overlord of Silvermoon Valley said indifferently. The old ape's expression was normal and his eyes were half closed, like an old monk in meditation without any expression. Aren't you going to head back? Are you waiting for me to slap you as well? The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak glanced at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and turned to leave as well. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak could only swallow his humiliation and return as well. In the blink of an eye, the overlords had already dispersed. The conflict came to an end just like that. The demons present shook their heads regretfully, feeling that they had yet to enjoy themselves. Su Zimo gazed at the departing backs of the overlords with a flickering gaze. No one knew what he was thinking about. Overlord, why did you stop me? Given the moment he returned to Silvermoon Valley's formation, the silver-robed man sent a voice transmission impatiently. Idiot! The overlord of Silvermoon Valley interrupted and berated. Do you think that old ape is blind? How can you possibly succeed when you attack in front of him? By the time he returned, the overlord of Silvermoon Valley's expression was completely dark and murderous. If he was merely slightly annoyed that Su Zimo suppressed the number 1 territorial lord of Silvermoon Valley, he was already filled with killing intent the moment he faced off against the 7 overlords. A low-level fiend demon with such strong combat strength. If he possessed such a temperament after cultivating for slightly more than 100 years, who would be able to stop him in the future if he was not killed? With the existence of this demon in Ape Chatter Ridge, it was not impossible for them to destroy the other 6 territories and unify the 10,000 demon valleys in the future. Overlord, what do you mean? The silver-robed man asked cautiously. The overlord of Silvermoon Valley sneered and glanced in the direction of Levitating Goat Peak and Thousand Snake Island. Don't be fooled by those old fogies' indifference. I'm guessing that I'm not the only one who wants to kill this demon. We have to wait for an opportunity to get rid of this demon. The overlord of Silvermoon Valley narrowed his eyes and seemed to be plotting something. After pondering for a moment, the overlord of Silvermoon Valley seemed to have recalled something and sent a voice transmission. Remember, if you attack again, use your essence spirit secret skills immediately. Don't get entangled with this demon. Remember, don't engage in melee combat with him. The overlord of Silvermoon Valley rubbed his chin with a grim expression and murmured, I haven't managed to tell what the true form of this demon is. I reckon that his background is not simple. At the same time, the overlords of Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island, Vermilion Cloud Valley and Confusion Fog seemed to be resting with their eyes closed. However, in reality, they were communicating with their territorial lords with their spirit consciousnesses as well. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge. Mo, be careful. Suddenly, the old ape sent a voice transmission. This time round, you've humiliated the 3 overlords. Given their vengeful nature, I'm afraid they'll have something else up their sleeves. From this day forth, don't stray too far from me. Yes, thank you, Senior, Su Zimo nodded. Although the overlords of Silvermoon Valley hid it extremely well, Su Zimo had already sensed it the moment their killing intent surged. The old ape continued, however, you don't have to worry too much. They won't dare to act rashly with me around and everyone watching. Chapter 851. For the next few days, under the strong suggestion of the overlords of Silvermoon Valley, Levitating Goat Peak and Thousand Snake Island, the demons partied in advance and feasted till dawn. The Thousand Demon meet was held as per normal. However, the fight for the Blood Sea spots was postponed. The other overlords had no objections to that, and neither did the old ape. Everyone could guess what the three overlords of Silvermoon Valley were thinking, but they did not state it out loud. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak, the silver-robed man and the woman in makeup were injured to a certain extent in the hands of Su Zimo and had to recuperate no matter what. For the next 3 days, the old ape stood guard at the front. Su Zimo did not leave as well. During this period of time, there were even some unbelievable rays of light coming from the forest far away. Some fiend demons said that a great treasure had appeared there. In fact, some fiend demons that returned even said that an ancient ruin had appeared there and attracted many fiend demons. However, Su Zimo was unmoved the entire time. Under his orders, Monkey, the Linghu, and the others did not leave the old ape's side as well. For the past 3 days, Su Zimo could clearly sense that some gazes with ill intentions were watching him from a certain corner. If he were to leave the old ape's side, there was a high chance that he would walk into a trap set up by others. 3 days later, the 7 overlords announced at the same time that the fight for the Blood Sea spots had officially begun. The first round was simple. With the 1000-year Blood Sea as the center, there were some Blood Sea badges made of superior-grade mystic iron hidden within a radius of 500 kilometers. There were a total of 500 badges. The Blood Sea badges could be placed on the ground, buried in the mud or hidden in caves. The fiend demons that participated in this round merely had to find a single badge. This round could eliminate most fiend demons. That was because although there were 500 Blood Sea badges, only the top 100 fiend demons that found the badges would be qualified to fight for the final 10 spots. More than 100 territorial lords of Levitating Goat Peak, Silvermoon Valley, Thousand Snake Island, Vermilion Cloud Valley, Confusion Mist Swamp and Golden Flames Mountain stood out. The opportunity to cultivate in the Blood Sea was rare and everyone wanted to give it a try. If he was lucky, he might be able to enter the final battle. As for Ape Chatter Ridge, there were only slightly more than 10 fiend demons taking part, including Su Zimo and Solitary Cloud. Are you sure you can pass this test? The old ape was still in disbelief. He could not help but grab Su Zimo and ask again. The range of a low-level fiend demon's essence spirit was limited to 50 kilometers. It was hard for him to imagine that Su Zimo's divine sense could reach an area of 500 miles away. Su Zimo smiled and said, "We can try. Go." The old ape nodded. Su Zimo and the others came to the side of the Blood Sea and waited. Why is that Imo participating as well? Isn't he a low-level fiendish demon? Over the past 3 days, Su Zimo's name had spread throughout the 1000 demon meet. He's probably here to join in the fun. It's true that his battle prowess is formidable, but if he blindly joins in on this kind of matter, he'll only bring disgrace upon himself. Many fiendish demons discussed softly. My. When the young master of Levitating Goat Peak caught sight of Su Zimo, he scoffed coldly and said in an eccentric manner, "What's a low-level fiend demon like you doing here? He's probably here to be the last one." Ha ha ha. The demons of Levitating Goat Peak burst into laughter. Su Zimo had an indifferent expression as he glanced sideways at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and asked, "Do you think that I can't obtain the Blood Sea badge? How dare a low-level fiend demon like you covet the Blood Sea badge? That's the greatest joke in the world." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak finally found an opportunity to mock Su Zimo to vent the humiliation he suffered 3 days ago and burst into laughter. "How far can your spirit consciousness extend? 20 kilometers? 30 kilometers? Let me tell you, the Blood Sea badge is hidden 500 kilometers away. Do you think you can? What if I can obtain the Blood Sea badge? Before the young master of Levitating Goat Peak could finish, he was interrupted by Su Zimo. "What did you say?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak shouted as though he had heard the greatest joke in the world. "If you can obtain the Blood Sea badge, I'll eat it." "Oh." Su Zimo's lips curled and a playful look flashed through his eyes. Originally, he really didn't have much interest in the first stage. However, he was tempted after hearing the young master of Levitating Goat Peak's words. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had a provocative expression as he pressed, "Demon Mo, do you dare to make the bet?" "What are we betting on?" Su Zimo asked. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak shouted, "We'll bet on whether you can obtain the Blood Sea badge." This, Su Zimo pretended to ponder deeply, as though he was put in a spot. When he saw that, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak was even more certain as he mocked with a smile, "If you don't dare to make the bet, scram. Don't embarrass yourself here. That's right. Head back. What's a low-level fiend demon like you trying to join in the fun for?" The demons of Levitating Goat Peak chimed in hurriedly. "All right, we'll make the bet." Su Zimo's face flushed red as though he was infuriated. However, his blood boiled as he agreed to it. A gentleman never goes back on his word. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak added hurriedly, afraid that Su Zimo would go back on his word. He surveyed the surroundings and looked at the 1,000-odd fiend demons around the Blood Sea before declaring loudly, "Everyone, listen up. I'm making a bet with Demon Mo right here. If he can obtain the Blood Sea badge, I'll eat it in front of everyone. What if you can't get it?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak turned to look at Su Zimo and asked smugly. "Up to you if you can't get it." Su Zimo reverted to his indifferent expression and shrugged gently. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was stunned. Suddenly, he felt uneasy when he caught sight of Su Zimo's expression. However, on second thought, he was definitely going to win this bet. Even if he lost, so what if he ate a Blood Sea badge? Although the Blood Sea badge was made from superior class mystic metal and was difficult to digest, it did not matter if he ate it. At most, he could just excrete it later. Furthermore, how could he lose? At that thought, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak calmed down and nodded. "Since that's the case, if you lose, you'll have to kneel down in front of everyone and let me ride on your back to circle the Blood Sea 3 times. "All right," Su Zimo nodded in agreement. This could be considered an extreme humiliation. This bet did not seem fair as well. However, all the demons thought that Su Zimo had gone mad and lost his rationality because he agreed to it. That demon Mo has cultivated for too short a time and is young and impetuous. He can't take provocations and fell for it after a few words of mockery. Fufu, the reputation that he built up previously is going to be destroyed overnight. Some of the fiend demons smirked coldly. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak continued, "I'm willing to swear a Tao oath. If I go back on my words, my cultivation will not improve in the future and I'll die from an unexpected calamity." Tao oaths were extremely mysterious. It was fine if he did not swear it. However, if he did, none of the cultivators of the 10,000 races would dare to go against it. Even emperors would be bound by Tao oaths. The demons were shocked. If he swore a Tao oath, it would mean that he was serious and there would be no room for negotiation. Su Zimo smiled gently and swore a Tao oath as well. With that, the bet between both parties was established. Chapter 852. Naturally, the 7 overlords were aware of the bet between Su Zimo and the young master of Levitating Goat Peak. Although the 7 overlords had different intentions, none of them interfered. To be fair, even the old ape was not optimistic about Su Zimo's chances of winning this bet. However, he believed that Su Zimo would have a way to deal with it. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak had lived for thousands of years and believed in his judgment. There was no way Su Zimo would win this bet. Furthermore, even if some unexpected variable were to appear and Su Zimo won, it would not matter if the young master of Levitating Goat Peak were to swallow the Blood Sea badge. As for the other overlords, they had their own thoughts as well. The overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp said that demon's combat strength is extraordinary. However, it's wishful thinking for a low-level fiend demon to obtain a spot to cultivate in the Blood Sea. Look at how certain that demon is. He might have some tricks up his sleeves, the overlord of Thousand Snake Island sneered. Suddenly, the voice of the overlord of Silvermoon Valley sounded in the consciousnesses of the overlords of Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island and Vermilion Cloud Valley. I'm not concerned about that. I merely want to know what the true form of that demon is. Since that demon is participating in the first trial, he has to open up his consciousness and release his spirit consciousness. In that case, this is a rare opportunity for us to investigate. The gazes of the overlords landed on the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley at the same time. At that moment, the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley was lying in his carriage with a bulging belly, drinking and having fun like a glutton. However, the overlords knew that this fatty was the one with the best investigative techniques among the 7 of them. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley was the same as before, having fun with the woman beside him. However, his voice sounded in the minds of the overlords, "Everyone, don't worry. I'll definitely be able to find out everything about that demon when he releases his spirit consciousness." The overlords were communicating with their spirit consciousnesses and outsiders naturally could not hear them. The old ape sat on the spot silently. As though he sensed something, his eyes widened with a cold glint and his white brows fluttered slightly. Beside the Blood Sea, the 1,000-odd fiend demons were ready and raring to go. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was filled with confidence and looked at Su Zimo provocatively. Su Zimo smiled faintly. Since he dared to accept this bet, he naturally had a card up his sleeve. He had cultivated 2 primordial spirits that had never been seen before. Furthermore, the range of the spirit consciousness of the 2 essence spirits had already reached 50 kilometers even though they had just entered the nascent soul realm. Right now, Su Zimo was already at the peak of mid-stage nascent soul realm. Be it the scarlet-haired Een spirit or the black-haired essence spirit, their spirit consciousnesses had a range of more than 250 kilometers. If the 2 primordial spirits fused, they might even reach 1,000 miles. To him, passing the first stage was not difficult at all. Ready. Begin. Following the order, divine senses burst forth from the surroundings of the Blood Sea and spread rapidly into the distance. If he wanted to pass this stage, not only did he have to find the Blood Sea token, he also had to find it as quickly as possible. Although there were 500 Blood Sea badges, only the top 100 fiend demons were qualified to participate in the final contest. Whoosh! Su Zimo also spread out his divine sense. At this moment, countless gazes gathered on Su Zimo, wanting to see how far his divine sense could travel. 5 kilometers. 50 kilometers. In the blink of an eye, it was already 50 kilometers. The demons were shocked. 50 kilometers was the limit of the spirit consciousnesses of low-level fiend demons. However, in reality, there were not many low-level fiend demons that could reach 50 kilometers. Those that could reach 80 to 90 kilometers were already peerless geniuses. However, in the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already reached 50 kilometers. Furthermore, it broke through 50 kilometers before long. He's truly strong. It's no wonder why this demon dared to take on this gamble. He's truly a rare genius that appears once in 1,000 years, no, 10,000 years. So what if he can break through 50 kilometers? The Blood Sea token is 250 kilometers away. He's way too far away. Furthermore, given his cultivation realm, his spirit consciousness will deteriorate faster as the range of his spirit consciousness expands. The voice of the fiend demon turned softer and softer until he could no longer continue. That was because he discovered that after 50 kilometers, the speed of Su Zimo's spirit consciousness did not show any signs of slowing down. In fact, it even surpassed most fiend demons. This demon is truly, all the demons widened their eyes and were speechless. Before long, the 200 kilometers were covered under the gazes of all the demons. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness did not deteriorate and was way ahead. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had a grim expression. The moment Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness, the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley, who was initially enjoying himself, tossed down his wine cup. His eyes widened and his eyeballs protruded continuously in a sinister manner, as though they were about to pop out. That pair of eyeballs was filled with a resplendent glow. The gaze of the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley traversed the void and entered Su Zimo's consciousness instantly. Vermilion Cloud, how is it? The overlord of Silvermoon Valley frowned and asked with a voice transmission. The overlords of Levitating Goat Peak, Thousand Snake Island and Confusion Mist Swamp sent voice transmissions as well. Just now, they could not find anything even after checking. There seemed to be an invisible force on Mo's body that was able to cut off their senses from beginning to end. Strange, a moment later, the resplendent glow in the eyes of the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley dissipated gradually and he retracted his eyeballs as well, murmuring softly. What's wrong? The overlord of Silvermoon Valley could no longer be bothered to send a voice transmission and blurted out. The old ape and the overlord of Golden Flames Mountain glanced sideways. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley frowned slightly and said slowly, that demon's true form is in human form. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak's gaze turned cold and killing intent surged as he asked coldly, he's a cultivator. If he's a human cultivator, we should kill him immediately. The overlord of Thousand Snake Island added. Chi. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain sneered, are the two of you deaf? Vermilion Cloud Valley has already said that this demon. The overlord of Silvermoon Valley waved it off. Those words are irrelevant. What do you mean by demons are in human form? I think he's a cultivator. You guys want to accuse him of being a human and kill him? The old macaque opened its eyes expressionlessly and said slowly, aren't your thoughts a little too obvious? He's not a cultivator. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley shook his head as well. I can sense that his essence spirit carries a rich demonic chi. There's no way it's the essence spirit of a cultivator. Indeed, the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak and the other two wanted to label Su Zimo as a cultivator so that they could kill him legitimately. However, since the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley had said that, they could only let it go. Furthermore, the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley hesitated. Furthermore what? The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak pressed. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley said deeply, furthermore, there seem to be some scales on the body of that human-shaped essence spirit that can't be seen clearly. Scales? The few overlords frowned. The old ape said indifferently, don't forget about the origins of the demon race. In the primordial era, it was extremely common for humanoid living beings to roam the wilderness. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain nodded. That makes sense. Only the bloodlines of living beings from the primordial era possess such immense potential. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley was about to continue when a series of exclamations sounded from the side. Look, it's already beyond 250 kilometers. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat as they turned over. The overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley's gaze flickered and he remained silent. There was something else he did not say. The scales on the human-shaped living being did not seem like the scales of an ordinary demon beast. Chapter 853. 250 kilometers. Most mid-level fiend demons would not be able to reach that range. But now, the spirit consciousness of a low-level fiend demon in the 1,000 demon meat had already exceeded a range of 250 kilometers. Furthermore, it was still extending continuously. The eyes of the demons were no longer filled with shock, they were filled with shock. This is truly hard to imagine. What is the true form of that demon for him to be so strong? The young master of levitating Goat Peak is definitely going to lose this bet. That might not be the case. The strength of one's spirit consciousness will weaken significantly beyond 250 kilometers. It's still unknown if he can find the Blood Sea badge. This logic was similar to one's eyesight. The closer one was, the clearer one would be able to see. The further one was, the blurrier one's vision would be, and it would naturally be harder to search for something. The fiend demons that participated in the first trial naturally had a range of 250 kilometers with their spirit consciousnesses. Otherwise, there was no need for them to participate and it would be unnecessary. However, beyond 250 kilometers, most of the fiend demons' spirit consciousnesses were at rock bottom. Not to mention searching for something from 500 miles away, they couldn't even sense anything from 500 miles away. Although this trial seemed simple, there were two aspects to it. The first was the range of one's spirit consciousness. The second was the refinement of one's essence spirit. The more refined one's essence spirit was, the clearer one's perception of their surroundings would be. Su Zimo's scarlet-haired Een spirit cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness and borrowed from the Great Wilderness Dragon King's spirit refinement technique. Which demon's essence spirit could be as refined as his? Even his black-haired essence spirit was refined from two heaven-grade cultivation techniques of the immortal and Buddhist sections. With the support of the creation Qinglian, it was refined and pure and was not inferior to the scarlet-haired Een spirit. Therefore, even after Su Zimo's spirit consciousness extended to 250 kilometers, he could still sense the surrounding environment, scenery, temperature, and direction of the wind clearly. Everything he saw was reflected in his mind. He could even sense the movement of insects and ants in the soil. Su Zimo was in no hurry. Even if the Blood Sea badge was buried 3 feet underground, he would be able to dig it out with his spirit consciousness. In his mind, he was thinking about what happened just now. The moment he released his spirit consciousness, he clearly sensed another powerful gaze penetrating the barrier formed by the Mingwang prayer beads and entering his consciousness. This caused him to be shocked. Of course, after arriving here, Su Zimo was extremely careful and had hidden his black-haired essence spirit. The creation lotus platform floated in a corner and all its petals were closed, ready to bloom. The black-haired essence spirit was hidden within. Therefore, Su Zimo's essence spirit consciousness, the essence spirit, the spirit to the spirit, to the spirit. The scarlet-haired Een spirit had already sensed the gaze of Vermilion Cloud Valley's overlord. As if stimulated by something, the scarlet-haired Een spirit opened its eyes. Its gaze shone brightly and scarlet dragon scales grew all over its body, as if they were burning with flames. Its entire body exuded a domineering aura. Demonic beasts placed great importance on territory. That was the might of dragons. Ordinary demon beasts could not defend against it at all. Although the overlord of Xixia Valley cultivated a secret skill that allowed his gaze to penetrate the obstruction of the Mingwang prayer beads and enter Su Zimo's consciousness, his strength was already depleted. His gaze dissipated the moment it made contact with the scarlet-haired Een spirit's gaze. That was the reason why the overlord of Xixia Valley did not manage to catch a clear glimpse of Su Zimo's true form even till the end. He merely felt a lingering fear towards the aura of the scarlet-haired Een spirit. This was merely an ordinary battle of spirit consciousnesses in front of the demons. However, nobody expected that Su Zimo would have already exchanged blows with an overlord to a certain extent right at the start of this battle of spirit consciousnesses. The entire process was silent but extremely dangerous. Su Zimo could not guarantee if the overlord of Xixia Valley would attack if his black-haired essence spirit was exposed. However, the overlord of Silvermoon Valley and the others would definitely not let him off. Ha ha ha, I've found it. Right then, the laughter of a fiend demon interrupted Su Zimo's thoughts. It was a fiend demon from Golden Flames Mountain. His spirit consciousness had just exceeded 250 kilometers when he discovered a Blood Sea badge on a patch of grass. Apart from the refinement of one's essence spirit, luck was also a factor in searching for Blood Sea badges. Some Blood Sea badges were displayed on the surface, tossed casually on the grass or placed on rocks. However, some of the Blood Sea badges were hidden deeper. Therefore, the longer time passed, the harder it was to find Blood Sea badges. That was because most fiend demons would find Blood Sea badges that were displayed on the surface. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had a grim expression. He was already depressed when he sensed that Su Zimo's spirit consciousness had exceeded 250 kilometers. If nothing went wrong, he should have lost this bet. However, he felt that he had no regrets about his loss. Who would have thought that a low-level fiend demon's spirit consciousness could extend to such a terrifying extent? So what if I lost? The young master of Levitating Goat Peak sneered internally, it's just a Blood Sea badge. It doesn't matter. Before long, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak found a Blood Sea badge on a tree branch. He gripped the badge with his spirit consciousness and retracted it swiftly. In that short period of time, almost half of the fiend demons had already found Blood Sea badges. Those fiend demons were excited. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak swept his gaze after retracting his spirit consciousness. Su Zimo was a step faster than him with a Blood Sea badge in his hands as well. It was clear that he had lost this bet. This is interesting. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak is going to devour the badge. Fufu, I don't even know what a Blood Sea badge tastes like. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak harumphed coldly with a terrible expression when he heard the discussions around him. Demon Mo, you've won this round. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak glared at Su Zimo with a dark gaze and said coldly, let's wait and see. The moment he said that, he suddenly realized that Su Zimo's eyes were closed and he seemed to be deep in thought, as though he had not heard him. Humph, what's with the act? The young master of Levitating Goat Peak pouted his lips. You're pretending to be deep. Right then, a few more fiend demons obtained Blood Sea badges and retracted their spirit consciousnesses with strange expressions. They turned to look at Su Zimo, who was standing silently at the side with shocked expressions. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had retracted his spirit consciousness long ago after obtaining the Blood Sea badges and naturally could not sense it. However, their soul consciousness had clearly sensed an extremely powerful soul consciousness from 500 miles away, which was searching for them without any scruples. It swept through all the Blood Sea badges within 250 kilometers. It did not matter if they were hidden in the depths of the soil or tree trunks. The spirit consciousness would find them and envelop them before continuing its search. By the time the few fiend demons retracted their spirit consciousnesses, the powerful spirit consciousness had already enveloped more than 100 Blood Sea badges. What is Demon Mo trying to do? The few fiend demons were secretly speechless. They stole a glance at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and thought of a possibility but could not believe it. In front of Ape Chatter Ridge, Yuan Ling, could not help but be dumbfounded when she saw that with her spirit consciousness. Before long, Yuan Ling, seemed to have thought of something and burst into laughter. What's wrong? Monkey and the others could not help but ask as they could not see what was happening 250 kilometers away with their spirit consciousnesses. That young master is in trouble, Yuan Ling, held back her laughter and said darkly, your boss, how should I put it? He's truly ruthless. Chapter 854. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak realized that the atmosphere around him was a little strange. Many fiend demons looked at him with pitiful and gloating expressions. So what if he devoured a Blood Sea badge? The young master of Levitating Goat Peak frowned and pondered. Right then, the 100th fiend demon obtained a Blood Sea badge. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain stood up and declared loudly, the first round is over. The remaining fiend demons retracted their spirit consciousnesses and shook their heads in disappointment. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak thought about it. Even if he lost the bet, he would only have to swallow the badge and lose some face, there wouldn't be much trouble. At that thought, he regained his confidence and raised his head slightly, looking at Su Zimo with an indifferent expression. The 7 overlords had already arrived in midair. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak raised his head and was slightly stunned. For some reason, the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak had a dark expression and was even glaring at him fiercely. That was an extremely stern gaze that caused his heart to skip a beat. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak could not understand. Even though he was defeated in the hands of Mo 3 days ago and was stunned on the spot, the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak did not say anything. Why was the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak acting like this after losing the bet? The overlord of Silvermoon Valley declared loudly, "Fiend demons who did not obtain a Blood Sea badge can head back first." "There's still a bet, right then," Solitary Cloud shouted from the crowd. "That's right, don't forget about the bet." "Ha, he's going to eat the badge." The demons cheered. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak had a terrible expression. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak harumphed and stood out. Glancing sideways at Su Zimo, he declared loudly, "Mo, I'm a man of my words and I'm a man of my words." With that said, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak flipped his palm and stuffed the Blood Sea badge into his mouth right in front of all the demons. Although the Blood Sea badge was not huge, it was made from superior class mystic iron after all and was difficult to digest or swallow. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had no choice but to revert to his half-demon form and reveal his menacing goat head. He opened his mouth and swallowed the Blood Sea badge. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak calmed down and took a deep breath to recover. "Mo, the fiend demons of Levitating Goat Peak are true to their words. We will never go back on our words." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak glared at Su Zimo coldly and said in a deep voice, "However, don't be too smug. I will never forget the humiliation I suffered today. One day, I'll make you pay me back 100 times over." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak had been thinking about that for 3 days and felt that it was excellent. Not only did it show his imposing manner, but it also showed his forbearance and determination. With that, the young master of Levitating Goat Peak flicked his sleeves and left in a carefree manner. "Wait." At this moment, Su Zimo's voice rang out as he gently waved at him. "Is there anything else?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak turned around and raised his chin towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo smiled and said, "The bet isn't over yet. Don't be anxious." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak froze for a moment. Immediately after, a blood-colored object floated over from not far away. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before Su Zimo and scattered on the ground. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak focused his gaze and his expression froze instantly. This large mass of blood-red things were all Blood Sea tokens. There were at least 300 of them at a glance. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's forehead broke out in sweat and his throat moved instinctively. Gulping, he asked with difficulty, "What do you mean by this?" "Of course, it's to fulfill the bet," Su Zimo replied indifferently. "You've only swallowed a single badge. As for these Blood Sea badges, they're all Blood Sea badges that I've gathered. As for you, you'll have to eat all of them." "You..." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak gripped his fists tightly and glared furiously, arguing loudly, "I didn't say that I'll eat so many of them in the bet." "Oh." Su Zimo asked instead, "What did you say in the bet?" "I..." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's expression flickered guiltily without replying. "In the bet, you said that you'll eat the Blood Sea badges if I manage to obtain them." Su Zimo pointed to the mountain of badges before him. "Then, let me ask you, are these Blood Sea badges?" The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was sweating profusely and shook his head repeatedly. His stomach rumbled as he looked at the mountain of badges before him. Just now, he almost spat out the badge that he swallowed. I am not eating them." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's voice was trembling. What a joke. Eating a Blood Sea token was not a big deal. But, the mountain of badges before him was almost a small mountain. How big of an appetite did he have to swallow all of them? Even if he did, he wouldn't be able to digest such a huge mountain of badges. Not far away, some of the fiend demons could no longer hold it in and burst into laughter. Their laughter was contagious. The demons roared in laughter. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak was flustered and looked at the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak in midair pleadingly. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak's expression was frosty as he grit his teeth tightly. The muscles on his face twitched. It was clear that he was enraged. "Young man, you should spare others whenever possible." The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak finally spoke and said word by word coldly, "You had better not go overboard." "Go overboard?" Zimo chuckled and shook his head gently, asking instead, "May I ask, overlord, who was the one who suggested this bet?" The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak remained silent. Zimo smiled gently and asked again, "Overlord, if I were to lose this bet, would you guys let me off?" The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak was silent. If Zimo were to lose, there was naturally no way he would let go of this opportunity. When Zimo saw that the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak was silent, he retracted his smile and asked indifferently, "One last question. Do you want to go against the Tao Oath?" The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak's lips twitched. Even demon emperors would not dare to go against a Tao Oath, let alone an overlord like him. This final question was truly heart-wrenching. He did not dare to answer. The overlord of Levitating Goat Peak closed his eyes. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Zimo turned to look at the young master of Levitating Goat Peak and pointed to the pile of blood sea badges in front of him, saying with a smile, "Go on and eat. There's more than enough badges." The young master of Levitating Goat Peak wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He realized that he could not avoid this at the end of the day. He had to jump into a hole that he dug himself. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak could only growl deeply and revert to his true form, grabbing a bunch of blood sea badges and stuffing them into his mouth. All the demons felt their stomachs ache at the sight of it. That Mo sure is gutsy to dare to go against an overlord in such a manner. He's ruthless as well to not leave any face for the other party. He's not the ruthless one. You guys probably don't know about this yet, right? I heard that Levitating Goat Peak and the others set up a trap to kill this demon 2 days ago. It's just that he didn't fall for it. Sure. Keep it down. Many fiend demons discussed in private as they watched the commotion. The number of blood sea badges before them decreased. The young master of Levitating Goat Peak's expression was already turning pale. He glared at Zimo fiercely as he devoured the blood sea badges, wishing that he could devour Zimo as well. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.